So officially welcome again to the Zoom room. Jackie, Sally, and Elaine, great to have you here. So yeah, I think let's we're doing a bit of an expression. Just if you don't mind, Sally, just talking, saying what you were saying about being in flow this morning, and that kind of idea about time, and then yeah, we're having a nice discussion about that. So let's continue that.
So I was just saying that today, on one aspect, been very busy, but it's also all slotted in together really well, and it's just like I couldn't imagine managing to get all that done in a logical sense, but one thing led to another, that I was able to do this and that, and I got insights about how to not shortcut, but get things done while I was doing other things, and yeah, discussing how in flow, how all the synchronicities, the right things said at the right time, you meet the right people, and it's just amazing, absolutely incredible.
Well, that's you know, one of the two symptoms of enlightenment according to the Vedas, Vedanta, which is an ancient Indian teaching. First one is lack of worry. So that's really about controlling your perception of time, isn't it? Worry puts you out of the now and into the future and the past. Worry is based on, oh, this has happened in the past, so therefore it might happen in the future. So I project my past errors, mistakes, upsets, dramas into the future, and I worry that, you know, those are going to happen, or worse is going to happen. And so I'm now stuck in past future mode, and I'm not in the now. So that's kind of foundational. If you stop worrying and you're in your attention's in the now, you're in this so-called state of flow, then the second one comes to pass, and that's called synchronicity, which is a word that Carl Jung coined to describe this kind of miraculous state where things just seem to fit, things just seem to work, one thing kind of connects with another. It seemed to be random, but synchronicity is saying that's not really random. There's some kind of relation between these, you know, these events, relationship, and it all seems to be kind of linking together in this quite mysterious way. And you just meet the right person at the right time. You think of someone, and then they call an hour later. You're looking for a solution. Email pops into your inbox and gives you, you know, a door to go through, these kinds of things. Joseph Campbell called it bliss. Follow your bliss. So it's just, you know, different terminology for the same phenomenon. Flow, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called it flow. This goes back to way back to 2,500 years ago. Lao Tzu, who was the master behind the start of Taoism, wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is really a treatise on how do you connect with source, being the Tao, but do it in a way where there's flow happening, where you experience this timeless presence. You never lose that, but you can translate it into action. So you can live in that state. And that's what the Tao Te Ching is about. The Chinese called it Wu Wei. Let me just share my screen with you. So you can see this quote. So, follow your bliss. Do you want to read that, Sally? The door's open. And tell us. You mentioned that story about the guy who stayed. I mean, you got to share that miracle. It's related to what happened here.
So I had a guy that came round yesterday, and I felt he was a bit dodgy and wasn't comfortable with him, and it was during the Course in Miracles sessions. So I talked about it on the session and pointed out that I was going at it from the ego point of view of fear rather than love. And then he's been staying here the last 24 hours, and he's gradually changed every time I met him in the kitchen or saw him somewhere. To the final conclusion was, wow, you live in a lovely place. The environment's lovely. It feels so peaceful. and he's getting eye contact now, and we love each other. So yeah, bit of a transformation from, oh, do I want you in my house, to like, oh, I love you.
And that's that's what the miracle is about. A change of mind.
And then that led on to, and then it kind of opened up the doorways where, oh, this is what it's about. It's having people come and stay for short periods and seeing the transformation in them, which is the transformation in me reflected back, that I can allow people to come and stay. They don't have to have a bedroom. They can just sleep on the floor, and it all is happening for me, not to me. And how I can see it's opened so many doors for me anyway. Yeah.
And then, there's the quote.
Yeah. Follow your bliss. If you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you. And the life you ought to be living is the one you are living. When you can see that, you begin to meet people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open the doors to you. I say, follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be. If you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that wouldn't have opened for anyone else.
Joseph Campbell, who came up with the hero's journey. So that's his interpretation, take on flow, isn't it? This is how it works. Synchronicity, miracles, flow. It's all the teachers and the teachings point to the same thing. And our job is to stay in flow, which is being in a miracle-minded state of mind. That's what the Course in Miracles is training us to do. If you recall in the introduction to the text, he's saying, I can't teach you the meaning of love because that's beyond what can be taught. But I can teach you to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And those blocks then keep you out of flow. You remove the blocks, you can stay in flow. You're still in time, but now it's a different perception of time. And that's what the miracle is all about. So A Course in Miracles, although ultimately it's going to help you transcend time and go into heaven, it's actually very practical. Like all these teachings, because they realize, well, the teaching is not very useful if you can't apply it in your daily life. Your daily life involves, various activities, time, space, all of these, ultimately illusions. But that's what you're dealing with day by day. So a course addressed, if it was a course in revelation, it wouldn't be particularly useful in daily life, because in revelation you can't participate in daily life. So hence not a course in love or a course in revelation, but a course in miracles, because the miracles are the state of flow. It's the feeling. Remember, internal in the integral model, the internal side of the quadrant is the interior experience of it, and then on the exterior, that gets mirrored by your behavior, other people's behavior, performance outcomes, and you start to see that those are linked. You see, I have an interior experience, I shift my perception as Sally did. So it's primarily here, interior individual experience, and then observe behaviors. The guy ceases to be dodgy, and he ceases to be seen as a threat. In fact, there's a connection, and suddenly there's eye contact, and he says, "Oh, this is an amazing house, and I really feel welcome here, and it's got a great healing energy." And then that opens up a door on the exterior level, because you open up a door in the internal domain to spirit. Now that opens up a door, and Sally's going, "Oh, maybe I could use this as a place for retreats." You see? Classic, that's the way the miracle works. And then she goes, "Oh, why don't I always do that? Because look at the outcome. That's so positive. Just because I let go of my suspicion and my fear and my judgment, look at the outcome. I feel more expanded. He feels expanded. There's a connection. There's love. It feels good. Oh, and there's a whole new set of possibilities that's just arisen because of that perceptual shift." And that's a classic example of a miracle. And then you stay in that flow. Well, these kinds of things can be happening all the time. Daily, you can be getting a number of these shifts depending on what's arising for you. And that's what he's trying to train us to do, live in the domain of the miraculous. So miracles become your normal default state of mind, the way of operating, modus operandi, your operating system. This is just how you do life. There's nothing special about it. Just that's how you operate. And that's what we're training for. So it just becomes the default, and life is fairly easy, flowing, a happy dream. Even the challenges are part of the flow. You see how that works. The challenges are an integral part of the flow, because without the challenges, you can't do the letting go that's then required to get you even more into the flow. And those challenges form part of the lessons in which flow is learned, miracles are learned. So everything's just, okay, another okay, that's fine. We just flow with it. Like water. Water is a great example of it in the physical world, because water doesn't go, oh, there's a rock, I'll just get stuck and bang my head on the rock. It just flows around the rock. Flows under, over, around, nothing really stops it. If it's flowing down with gravity towards the ocean, which is kind of what we're doing, there's this gravitational pull towards source, then nothing going to stop that. You just flow around any obstacles, and that's just part of the journey. In a river, I mean, if you kayaking or something, you say, oh my God, this is terrible, there's a rock. You don't do that, do you? It's just part of the journey. You're like, of course there's going to be rocks and obstacles, but you flow around them, you navigate your way through them, and so that's part of what makes the journey interesting. It was just a flat river. It's not interesting. It's not no longer white water rafting or kayaking. It's just a gentle row down a river. See, so that's what kind of makes it interesting and engaging and actually quite exciting in some ways for us, because it's different and it's interesting and it's new and it's fresh, even though you're coming from the spirit that never changes. That's the interesting thing. So some people say, well, this is horribly boring, just the sameness. I can't deal with it. Give me the differences that the ego gives. But coming from the same state of mind, being rooted in your true your essence, your Christ awareness, somehow allows that. And the sameness, you get this uniqueness, this unique journey, your hero's journey, that unfolds even though you're rooted in the same presence. And your life can actually become very interesting. Lots of different things and people, but you're rooted in that presence. So none of it really takes you away from that presence. It's all experienced through the Christ vision. You see how it works? And that's really what A Course in Miracles is about. That's the essence of it. It's not a big theoretical book that you're supposed to intellectually study and try and get a PhD in. It's about living it, and we study it in depth and intensively so that you can apply it in your daily life, and you can have this experience of flow. Otherwise, it would just be a theoretical intellectual exercise. And he's saying, ultimately, universal theology is pointless. But a universal experience is not only necessary, but possible. But is not only possible, but necessary. Sorry, the other way around. So it comes down to that experience of it, and your experience of spirit, this oneness, your source expressed in the world will feel like flow. That's what it'll feel like. Just a word to describe it. You can use another word. You can say, I'm in miracle-minded, I'm in a miraculous state of mind, I'm really in sync, I'm in the zone. It doesn't really matter what pointers you use. But flow is as good a one as any. Because again, changing the language, often with miracles, people go, oh, that seems a bit otherworldly and a bit like beyond me. Like Jesus did miracles, but I can't really do miracles, little old me. So they can't kind of accept that yet, that term. But flow is something new. Oh, well, I don't have any preconceived ideas towards flow. That sounds quite good, actually. We can all see, the idea of flow, water flowing, usually quite a positive association with people. Okay, well, I'd like to be like the river, just, flowing down and going through obstacles. That's a nice idea. So less resistance to it. So then call it flow instead of miracles. It could be called in modern psychological terms a course in flow instead of a course in miracles. fact, maybe we should. We won't change the title. That would be too cheeky. A Course in Flow. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, or shall we go into our teaching for today?
I like the book
Right,
title.
so I'm gonna dive in then.
Course in Flow.
By the way, Elaine, are you getting my emails? Did you get this one this morning?
I think no, I didn't. No, I don't. Can I just check?
Yeah, please do.
Quickly. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to take too much time there.
No, it's okay. We'll just carry on.
Yeah.
Sent quite early this morning. And it did say you're on the list, so just
no.
So it's probably in spam or something.
Right. No, I haven't had any.
So have you found it?
No, I'll have a look at all.
Go into spam, yeah.
Spam. Oh yes, it's in. Oh, spam. I wonder why.
Yeah,
because yes, I can see it.
So if you unspam it and teach Gmail,
right,
and you put my email address on your whitelist, do you know how to do that in Gmail?
I'll look on YouTube to find out. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
But
I can send you some instructions.
Yeah.
I'll send you some instructions to whitelist it. Then it'll go into your primary inbox, so it doesn't get.
That's that's great.
Sidetracked into another spam box or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so will you kick it off with reading this quote? This is from the Song of Prayer. Too busy working through at the moment.
Me?
Yeah. Can you read it? Shall I make it a bit bigger?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I think yes.
Make
Your inspirational quote and other mind training. Right. Yeah. See, his voice will teach you what forgiveness is and how to give it as he wills it to be. Do not then seek to understand what is beyond you yet, but let us be a way to draw you up to where the eyes of Christ become the sight. You choose, give up all else, for there is nothing else. When someone calls for help in any form, he is the one to answer for you. All that you need to do is to step back and not to interfere. Forgiveness for salvation is his task, and it is he who will respond to you.
Respond for you.
Respond for you.
Yeah, that's quite descriptive of your experience, isn't it, Sally? You say, eyes of Christ become the sight you choose. And when someone calls for help, we talked about that. Everything's just a call for help in any form. Then He is the one, Christ, to answer for you. So your true self answers for you, and all you need to do is get out the way and not interfere. Which is the trick, really. That's the letting go part. Letting go of the ego's attempt to hijack the situation and come in and interfere and use it for its purposes. Okay, so I'll just read this. It's quite short today. In today's quote, it's from the Song of Prayer, which Elaine, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's a supplement to A Course in Miracles. So it's now become actually part of the latest edition, I think edition 3 of the official Foundation for Inner Peace version. It's been included because it was given by the same process of dictation just a few years later. So she finished the course, being the text, the workbook, and the manual for teachers, and the clarification of terms in 1972. It then got edited and published in 76. And then around that time, 76, 77, I think this came through about 5 years later in the same way. And she wrote the Song of Prayer and the psychotherapy purpose processes and practices supplements, which are now officially part of the course as kind of supplements to it or addendums to it. So we've been reading it over the last couple of weeks, the tail end of our 1-year program, because we finished everything else. So it tells us not to try to understand what is still beyond our understanding. Okay, so it's quite interesting. He's saying, don't go, oh, I don't understand, and you're trying to get it intellectually. But rather practice forgiveness or letting go and allow this process, because it is a process, forgiveness. It's the transformational process that raises us up to the level of Christ or our true self in our thinking, where this self then directs all of our perceptions. And to do this, he advises us merely to step back and not interfere with this process, but rather to allow the Holy Spirit or remembrance of perfect love to guide us in all our thoughts, words, and actions. So it's getting out the way, stepping back, and letting this presence, this spirit, it's really what remembers love in our minds, letting that take charge. And there's many lessons where he says, I will step back and let him lead the way, these kinds of things. Saying it's not me. The idea of flow is really you, the separate self, is not in charge. So flow requires that your ego has got out the way, if not permanently, but at least temporarily. And that this deeper, higher self called the Christ is now in charge of that experience and perceiving it for you. So here's the in fact, I just wanted to share another quote with you. And interesting, because flow and follow are virtually the same words, aren't they? Follow your bliss and flow. Just take out a couple of letters in there, and you've got the same root words. It's no accident to these. Let's just find this. No,
I find that interesting. Can you hear me? Your name?
Yeah, there we go.
I find it interesting how the words seem to link together. But obviously that's only in English. How does that work when it's translated into another language? So like, we were talking about veil and live and evil.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know enough about languages. Maybe in some languages it does. I know. I mean, Sanskrit is sort of the language of original spirituality. The language, I think they have something like 180 words for different inner states describing enlightenment. It's extraordinary.
Oh, wow.
Because it was a language, designed to describe their experiences of these early masters who were having these spiritual experiences. So I think Sanskrit would be quite an interesting language to study, because you'd probably see a lot of that, I can imagine. But I don't know enough about language. You'd have to ask a language. I'm sure there must be someone who's done that, spiritual, with a spiritual kind of angle. What's the study of language called? Etymology. Well, that's the roots of words. But a linguist or language expert who then was able to look at different languages from the spiritual perspective and say, these are the areas. What I can say is the breath is quite interesting. The word breath is the same in many of the ancient languages as the word for life or spirit. So breath, life, spirit were all the same word, and that's the case in a number of different languages: Greek, Latin, the Hawaiian. They had the ha is for the breath. As the word for the breath, which is part of their their name. And these were the same words as the breath, because they understood that breath and this kind of the spirit of spacious awareness were synonymous. Because the breath, if you start just breathing, it connects you with that awareness, doesn't it? So it's logical that those would be synonymous words, because it would have been the breath would have been the mechanism for that experience. So people just connected it. So I think there's certainly a lot in English, and in other languages, I don't know. We'll have to ask if Aurélie joins. We'll have to ask her about French. So does the same thing occur? I mean, English is I think it's got the most words. It's got 150,000 words or 200,000 words or something, whereas French only has 40,000, I think. So you would have more in English because there are more words, more
Yes.
opportunity for these kinds of relationships, and different words to describe, subtleties and nuances that a language with fewer words wouldn't have.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting in the language because it's all pointers, isn't it? Some words, Yesha says, words are symbols twice removed from reality. So they're not their reality, but they can be very useful signposts to that reality, which is why we're using them. A Course in Miracles
Think
is
about French, and
Mhm.
la vie is life. So
Yeah.
that's got well, it's got three of
Hmm.
that actually has the words, same letters.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Voile is veil, so that has the same letters.
Yeah.
I don't think what evil is. What evil is in French?
Well, we can find out very easily. Google Translate.
Yes.
Translate French to English. We'll switch it around. So we'll go evil.
Mal. Is it
Evil.
mal?
Mal, is it?
Mal.
Spanish,
It's the
Arabic,
same in Spanish.
French. Mal.
Then there's a word which I've never heard. Le fleur. Don't know how you pronounce that. No, it's like fleur, but with an acute accent. But
Hmm.
that's got the letters for life in, and that means scourge, plague, evil, bane, curse.
Hmm. Yeah. But Mal has its own, so in Dutch, German, Afrikaans, which I speak in my country, mal means you're mad.
Oh, really?
Yes. So the same root word as evil. Insane, mad, evil, same thing. Mal.
Same meaning, isn't it, really? But when we think
Yeah.
about it in course terms.
Yes, yeah. You're just insane. You're very, just insane mind.
Yeah.
Or do wrong because it's totally confused. It thinks that what is what is wrong is actually right.
Yes.
Totally upside down. So that's the definition of madness. You're convinced that it's right, but it's actually totally wrong. So doing harm to yourself and others is somehow right then in terms of ego consciousness.
Mm.
But that's mad. That's insane. That's totally upside down.
Yeah.
So evil and insanity are the same thing.
Yes.
Which I quite like the idea of insanity rather than evil, because it doesn't make it so sinful and guilty, does it?
Yes, good point.
Just say the person's insane. They totally confused, and they don't know the truth anymore.
Yeah.
They're confused rather than they evil is a much better pointer to describe whatever the state of mind is.
Yeah.
Even if someone's apparently trying to hurt you actively, is malicious. There's the mal again. They're just insane. They're totally confused about who they are and what reality is, and they think that somehow that's going to work.
Yeah.
And that's a good strategy somehow. That's going to keep them safe. It's going to help them, and that's totally insane. It's not true. It's not true at all. The evidence for that is it's almost self-evident once you open your eyes that strategy does not work. You only have to look at your own life experience, other people's life experiences, human history. It's like evil doesn't work. It's not a sustainable strategy for playing the game. It's a very finite game, which has terrible consequences if you keep playing that. And look at a guy like Hitler. Okay, so there's what most people go, okay, that's evil epitomized. He was actually just insane. He was very confused.
Yeah.
But his insanity, he had a strong where he was tapping into dark forces, and they possessed him, and they used him to do their work.
I mean, from another dimension.
Well, just from the ego, these egoic entities are drawn to people who open themselves, and he was into the occult, and they did seances and invited. It was a spiritual it was like a spiritual takeover attempt by the dark forces using this entity. He was the, their antichrist. And there's a good book about it, where they go into the spiritual, what brought Hitler to power. There's a group of dark occultists who were looking for their Christ, their antichrist, and they found Hitler, and they were like, he's the one. And then they did a seance. Someone who tapped in, and she said, no, he's the one. And they were like, oh wow, we found the ones. But they didn't listen, because it was like what she saw was huge destruction. And she said, this is what's coming. But they were so blinded by their desire for power, and they wanted their version of the Christ to come and kind of perpetuate their worldview around the world, and that this would be him. But they didn't see that the consequences of that would ultimately be devastating, which they were. World war, massive pain, suffering, and eventually it came back on him. The entire world is after him. Everyone wants Hitler. He's wanted man. He has to commit suicide. There's no option. And his whole world just shrinks to a little, from the grandiosity of I'm conquering the world to like, now I'm hiding in a little bunker and everyone's after me and I've got no option but to take my own life. That's the consequences of following that mad voice. So we can learn from those characters, just like we can learn from the enlightened beings. You can learn from a Hitler and go, okay, well, that wasn't very clever, was it? What he didn't really work. It wasn't sustainable. He caused huge harm to others and himself, and eventually had to take his own life because there was no other option really. So that didn't lead him down a positive path, and he was totally insane. He would say things like, General, send the 6th Panzer Division to go and counter the British or American forces. And the general would say, Herr Führer, there is no 6th Panzer Division. It got destroyed a month ago. And the guy would say, traitor, he's a traitor, shoot him. No sanity at all, because he was living in a fantasy world. He still thought that all of this stuff was, he was insane.
What's that book called?
Reality.
What's the book called?
That's a good question, actually. I read it years ago. I'd have to find it. It was a book about Hitler's life. There must be many, but not Mein Kampf. Adolf Hitler life story, biography. What was it called? It maybe be one of these. I'll try and remember. But it was done from a spiritual perspective. That's what I liked about it. It was like, okay, so what's actually behind it? And he was into the occult. He was so he was familiar with Blavatsky's teachings, all of that. But then he took it in a dark way and started using it for egoic purposes. And then there was this group of people just post-war who were looking for their kind of antichrist, very dark, and they were tapping into other domains and seances and all of this, and they found him. They were like, right, he's our hero, and we're going to promote him. And so he had a lot of support to get where he did. Didn't just happen on his own. There was a whole group, and it was basically an ego hijack attempt on the world. So okay, this guy's going to be the antichrist. He's going to rule the world. But the spirit couldn't allow it. So it wasn't, the whole World War II was the conflict between the light and the dark, and it just couldn't be allowed. So you got, on the opposing side, you got Churchill coming, into his power, being guided by the spirit, saying, no, this cannot be allowed. We must fight this, and you must inspire people to say no, because if you allow this, you can't negotiate with insanity. Remember, if you know the history, Neville Chamberlain was the appeasement guy. He was like, oh, well, just appease him. But that wasn't really forgiveness. It was actually cowardice. They were just fearful. They were like, well, this guy's so big and scary that we've got to appease him and try and make terms with him, because there's no way we can fight him. And Churchill had to get the British people into like, okay, we have the inner strength. We have the power. This guy isn't unbeatable. You know, we can do this. So that was an aspect of spirit. It wasn't classic forgiveness by any means. But then you can't reason with insanity. I think that's the lesson. The psychopath, there's no reasoning with him, because he's totally insane. And so you can't apply the, you know, Chamberlain was he was thinking Hitler was sane, and he could reason with him and he'd keep his bargains. And it was like Churchill saw very clearly, the guy's insane. You cannot reason with the insane. And if he's, you know, got a huge army and stuff, well, the only option is you have to fight. There's no other way. So it's the one war where I'd say, well, what could they have done else? You know, how else could they have done it? They tried appeasing and not doing it, and in the end, you know, you had to say no. This can't happen. So then, you know, we have to bear arms. And interesting, in the Bhagavad Gita, I don't know if you've read any of that, but there's a passage. It was about this great war that happened 150,000 years ago. What's it called? The Mahabharata, which is described. And Arjuna, who was he was kind of the student of Krishna. They had to go into battle, and he was saying, but I shouldn't have to fight, because, you know, it's all about the spirit and oneness. And Krishna said to him, well, you must do what you're called upon to do. You know, if that's what's unfolding for you, then you must do it with spirit. You fight in the spirit of, I'm doing what I need to do, and I bear no malice towards my opponents. I'm just doing what is required. So I don't want to kill them and hurt them, but I'm in a battle, and then, you know, I have to just you know, do what's required, which is quite interesting. So it was actually translating even the battle from the Holy Spirit's point of view, and saying, okay, well, if that's what's unfolding and that's what is in your path, then you must bear arms, but do it consciously. Do it, you know, do it as you're called upon to do it. So, you know, even, you know, the spirit can handle anything. And I think that you know, World War II was an example of, I think the spirit did handle it. I think it was like, okay, this has got to, you know, otherwise the alternative would have been that insane psychopathic thought system would have ruled the world, because that was what it was trying to do. So yeah.
And I wonder, I sometimes think, you know, particularly in Asia, I think about my travels in Asia, you meet, you know, the gentlest people, and they have a very lovely, gentle approach to life through Buddhism, but the governance of some of these countries is really vicious. And does that come about because they allow it in some ways, from, you know, attempting to follow a spiritual path, or are they largely unaffected by it? You know, until you get
it's an interesting dilemma, isn't it? When do you say no? When do you say enough is enough and take a stand and say, okay, well, you know, we have to fight? And when do you just say, okay, well, you know, take it? I mean, look at what happened to Tibet, like lovely spiritual country. If you've seen what's it, 7 Years in Tibet, Brad Pitt, great movie. And so that could be definitely one on the movie watching list for us. You know, it's just the Chinese just walked in and took over, and the Tibetans didn't have any capacity to fight. They tried, you know, but very flimsy. They had no military or anything, and so they just got taken over. And, you know, that all of that, you know, beautiful spiritual culture just got, you know, really trodden on, and I mean, they can never, you know, completely undo it, but a lot of the monasteries and so on got burned, and it was kind of just a fascist. It was that same fascist mindset as the Nazis, which you know, Brad Pitt said. He said, I was ashamed that I used to think this way, that it's okay to come in, you know, as a stronger and just conquer the weaker and just take over, because, you know, by force, by arms. So I'm going, well, you know, did the Tibetans have to fight? I mean, they tried, but, you know, they were no match, because they hadn't prepared themselves. So when do you say no? When do you say is enough is enough? You know, that's the question. And I think you can say
difficulty. That is the difficulty.
And you've got to take the guidance. In World War II, I would go, well, what else could they have done? How else would you have avoided that conflict? I don't see any other way. I mean, in the end, you were either going to try and make terms with this crazy psychopath and know that, he wasn't going to honor his word because he's insane. He's not a man of his word. So once you've given him an inch, he's going to take the whole thing. He wants world domination. So what do? You have to say no, not on my watch. It's not going to happen. And it required someone like Churchill to galvanize people and say, actually, we can do this. It seems hopeless because the odds seem, hugely against us, but we find the power and the courage within us, and then the tide will turn, and it did, because they
At
found
a very great cost, though, didn't it? That's the thing. I mean, it was massive.
Yeah,
cost.
but the alternative was the Nazis rule the world. So, I mean, you have to do what's required, don't you? Massive.
I mean, my
cost.
situation, dealing with, an insane mindset that I was up against, I felt guided to stand my ground.
Yeah. Well,
And I did, but it just got worse and worse. Except,
were you doing? I guess the question is, do you do it in a spirit of fear or anger, or can you do it from a state of no, that's not correct. I'm in the moment. Another great movie for you to watch is Revolver, Guy Ritchie.
okay.
Fantastic movie, because at the end of it, there's a confrontation between the hero and his nemesis, and the guy's got a gun, and he's going, I'm going to shoot you, and he's so in his power that he just looks at him and goes, okay, well, whatever, I'm not scared. And the fact that he's not scared freaks the guy out so much. He can't handle it, because he's like, I've got a gun, I've got the power, and you're not scared of me. You just look at me like, okay, whatever, I'm not scared. Blows his mind. So, that's how you face it. It's like, okay, I'm facing it, insanity, but I'm facing it in my power. And then how that expresses in your case, well, that's your journey. The Spirit gives you the guidance moment by moment, but do not do it in a spirit of fear or doubt or anger.
Yeah.
You do it in the spirit of, I'm standing for what is right, what is true, and I will be guided, and I will do it peacefully and calmly, with dignity and courage, and all of that, and then it becomes part of your spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And if you look at what happened in wartime Britain, there was a lot of spirit coming through, a lot of those deeper values. It's like, we're doing this for freedom, we're doing this for the light, and we must do what we must do, and let's band together. Brought everyone together. There was a noble cause, and against that, because Churchill was able to unite the British people in the spirit, there was no way evil could overcome that. It wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah.
And then, on the level of form, you saw what happened. It unfolded in a way that there were forces that really helped the Allies to win that conflict. They could have lost. I mean, if you think of Dunkirk, if you know your military history, Dunkirk could have been an absolute disaster, but it was actually, it somehow all worked out, and they managed to save a lot of their army and stuff, which then was essential for then 4 years later when they invaded. You see, so all these things, there was a battle between the light and the dark.
Yeah.
Very much so. And in the end, the light must win because it's more powerful. It's coming from source, and the darkness is self-destructive. It cannot sustain. So any really heavy egoic regime like the Nazis, if you think of communism, Stalin's communism, it was dreadful. Mao Zedong, the whole Red Revolution thing, I mean, just mass insanity. These didn't last, did they? They can't sustain, because that ego is self-destructive. So it's not a sustainable way to live. So sooner or later, that system falls, and the spirit restores some kind of sanity. At least, I mean, you look at human history, it's insane, but through it there is this sanity. The Holy Spirit's kind of guiding the whole thing to a place of more sanity, more light, more awareness. I mean, you look at the last 2,000 years compared with what used to go on. It was okay just to like stone people to death and crucify someone, it's not okay anymore. That's not allowed. So we have actually progressed as a society. Just doesn't always seem like it. I'll try and remember what it was called. I'm not sure it was any of these. It was a spiritual angle on it, spiritual angle. Because it really went, what it was interesting, it wasn't just the form, it was going into the inner domain. So what actually happened in spiritual pathology, the case of Adolf Hitler. I don't know. I'll try and find it. It'll come to me now if it's meant to. But it was very interesting. It gave me the shivers, really. It was like, whoa. Because he worked with, the equivalent, what we call the devil. It was like, okay, this dark force we call the ego. There was a moment where he gave himself over to that and said, okay, take me and use me, in the same way as we do with, the Holy Spirit and the Christ. Take me and use me. And then the effect was, okay, it did. And you saw the the power of that coming into the world. But in the end, it was insane and self-destructive, because it's not a power that can sustain against the spirit.
I suppose
Okay.
the difficulty is, if you try and talk to anybody about this sort of thing, taking the high overview of it, you can see how light eventually triumphed. But I mean, if I were to say that to any of my Jewish friends, they'll say, well, try telling that to the people in the concentration camps. It's
But you have to have a bigger perspective, we'll then say, well, yes, actually there was one. His name was Viktor Frankl, and
there was one, yeah.
There were a number. He wasn't the only one, but he transcended that, and he came up out of that, was born logotherapy, which is really just another version of this teaching, to bring to the world, to say, out of this horrendous experience is born a mindset, a teaching that can help people to find true meaning and purpose in their lives, and find happiness.
So the many people who died who didn't have the same level of spiritual understanding, I mean, was that just their path, their destiny?
Yeah, just another life. There would have been some lessons learned. There were profound lessons learned. Many people did, because in those extreme circumstances, you're either going to choose the ego and you're going to choose to be a total victim, or you go the other way. Something in you awakens and you go, I can't allow this. And then you get these extraordinary stories of, like, the Viktor Frankls. There were a number. Anne Frank, there was another lady who wrote a book about it. She'd been in a concentration camp, and really, hope within the darkest possible circumstances. There's still this hope, which comes from within. It comes from the spirit. There's the external circumstances are so bleak and dire that you can't find it there. You can only find it in your own heart and mind. And so then people do, and then they have these extraordinary stories to tell, which inspire the world, and they write books. And so, in the darkest hour, look to the light. As lyrics of, we did that song of Enya, Only If, which I sent out the other day.
Yeah.
When there's a shadow, you follow the sun. When there's a shadow, you follow the sun. So, in the darkness, you must find the light. You must follow it. And the call becomes, it's essential. Like, there's no option, you see, because it's so dark. Your dream is so dark that, well, where else are you going to go? You can't look outside to find any light. Nazi concentration camp, it's just a very, very dark place. So you have to go within, and that's what it forces people to do. And therein is their transformation. So Viktor Frankl would probably have said, I would choose that again. I think he was asked, would you do it again? He'd probably say, yes, I would. Because what was born out of that experience was my life's work and my life's purpose, and what was truly what I was supposed to do, and meaning. And so why would I deny the experience that was going to awaken me? Even though people died, but people die all the time. It's not unusual. They just, don't necessarily die en masse like that, but sooner or later they're all going to die. So it's looking beyond the the limited perspective of the ego.
Yeah.
to the spirit. I remember once I sent out a quote. It's a great quote. You know, it was, if you can't forgive Hitler, then you can't forgive anyone.
Mm.
And I sent it out, and there was a guy on my mailing list who's Jewish, and he said, "Oh no, John, I saw him that night at Squash," and he said, I normally I like your quotes, so they're great, but that one," he said, "don't send me that shit," he said. And I said, "Why not?" I said, "You know, it's true." He said, "Yeah, I get what you're trying to say, but no, don't even go there, because in the Jewish mindset, that is sacrosanct. That victim story is sacrosanct.
Yeah.
And they've made it into an identity that defines them as a people, and that is why, you know, don't go there. But the truth is, the only way out of that mental prison is to forgive. You got to let it go, and you must forgive Hitler and the Nazis and the whole thing, and say it never really happened. It wasn't true.
Yeah.
Because if you make it real, then you've got this major block to the awareness of love's presence in your mind, and that's gonna keep showing up in your present reality. And so the shadow of the Nazis and the past and all that evil now haunts you 80, 90 years later, and it you know, it's affecting your happiness and health and well-being and everything, which is insane. Why would you let that happen?
Mm.
But I tell you, a lot of people won't see it this way. They'll go, "Oh no, that's, you can't forgive that. That's unforgivable." But you can, and you must. So, you know, if there's anyone who's Jewish who's listening to this, don't take offense, but this is the spiritual truth. You have to let go of whatever it is, as bad as it seems to be. And the Holocaust, you know, doesn't get much worse on the level of form. 6-7 million people murdered, you know, in a very calculated, systematic, cold-blooded way. It was horrific on the level of form, but yet you must forgive that. Otherwise, you're still enslaved by the ego that inspired the Nazis to do that, and they affect you now in your present day, and you're giving Hitler and, you know, that whole insane consciousness power in your own life. Well, why would you want to do that? So, you know, when there's a shadow, you follow the sun, follow the light. That's the only thing you can do.
Mm.
When there is love, then you look for the one. And for the promises, there is the sky. And for the heavens are those who can fly. So you must, great lyrics, you know, you got to fly away from it all. And how you fly in this world is you let go. You're not burdened by all of these, the heavy kind of darkness of the ego. You let go of those burdens, and then spiritually you fly, and you go, you ascend, you rise up to the Christ, as he says here.
Yeah.
Will draw you up. Do not then seek to understand what is beyond you yet, but let it be a way to draw you up to where the eyes of Christ become the sight you choose. So you may not fully get it yet, and there's still some hurt and pain, but you go, okay, but I'm willing. The key thing here with forgiveness is I'm willing to do this. I really am willing. I want to do this. And I'm not quite there maybe, but I'm trying. I'm still, yes, I'm going to let this go. I'm going to keep working at a teaching like A Course in Miracles, because the more that I work at it, and the more that I forgive, the more that my perception gets changed, my awareness raises up, and then the eyes of Christ, my true self, become the sight that I've chosen. But it's a process. That's what he's saying to us. Don't expect, a lot of people, oh, this is too difficult. It's too hard. How can you say something like the Holocaust isn't real? It's just, okay, well, don't just start with forgiving whatever's in front of you. You know, that's a big, you know, if that's in your family history, or you're Jewish, that may be too big. So start with something littler. Okay, well, I'm going to work on, you know, forgiving my, you know, my senile mother, or my, you know, sibling I'm having a conflict with, or the neighbor next door who's playing loud music, or whatever it is. I'm going to work on that level first. And you just you know, start making it a practice to just let go, making that choice over and over and over again, and then gradually the eyes are going to be raised up. You come into the awareness of your true self, and the eyes of Christ is the perception of your true self, and you start to experience the benefits of that, and it becomes self-evident that, you know, this is really the only way. I mean, what other choice do you have? The only other choice is to judge and to condemn and to feel the effects of that, and you feel unhappy and miserable. So, you know, there are your choices. Well, when you've experienced the effects of both, the choice surely becomes obvious. You know, what do you really want to experience? Give up all else, for there is nothing else. Right? There seems there's an illusion of something else, an illusion of another thought system, another way. But he's saying that's nothing. There isn't really anything else. That's an illusion. If you look at, you know, evil, darkness, there's nothing really there. It's just a lack of light. It's a lack of the truth. So it has no substance in itself. You can't say there it is. It's just the lack of the light. Do you see? So there's actually nothing there. It's defined by a lack of spirit's love, light. So people who, you know, rooted in duality, they go, oh, well, they both have reality. No, because the one is true and the other one is the denial of the truth. It's only defined by the opposite that is real. So even that perception, you can see that it's not real. Even if you look at the, you know, you say, okay, well, there's the darkness, I'm perceiving it. But you go, but it's only an absence of. So is that even real? If I bring the light in, then the absence of it must disappear. Turn on a light in a dark room, the darkness disappears. I mean, there you go. No amount of darkness can turn out the light, but the light instantly removes the darkness. And we see that just on the physical level. So that applies, you know, that's a fundamental law. The darkness is the lack of the light. You bring the light, the darkness must disappear because it has no fundamental existence. There's nothing really there. Just a denial, just a thought of denying the light. So you can show, you know, that non-duality is true. You know, these kind of logical arguments, but in the end, they don't matter because it comes down to someone's acceptance of it. You need to accept it or not. That's all. And if you don't accept it, then you'll continue to believe in the darkness in whatever way, shape, or form, because that's what you want. You want to believe in the darkness. I had a conversation with a chap about a year and a half ago, and he was of the alternative school of non-duality, believe it or not. The alternative, how's that for a paradox? And he's like, no, I've done A Course in Miracles. I've read that, and like some of the Advaita, you know, Advaita Vedanta is familiar. But no, I'm now into Tantra. I said, okay, well, interesting. So explain. And he said, no, I'm of the alternative school because there's both truth and illusion are equally real. That was what he was saying. That's the alternative school of non-duality. Well, it's not an alternative school of non-duality. It's dualistic teaching. And don't call it an alternative school, because there's an alternative school of non-duality by definition. Non-dual is non-dual is non-dual. There's only one. That's, you know, there's no alternative to that. If you want to believe in the alternative, then you believe in duality. So don't call it an alternative school of non-duality. But you see how the ego has dressed it up to try and convince itself that its perspective is correct and that it's okay. Yes, you can have both truth and illusion, and they both equally true. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so it's as true to want to kill someone, murder someone, do all the crazy things that people like Hitler did, as to love them and connect with them and share, and both are equally valid. That's what you're saying. If you boil it down to the practicality of it, and that's clearly nonsensical, because they're not equally the same. If you act on the one impulse to murder and you act on the other to love, you're going to get hugely different experiences and outcomes. So how can they be the same then? I mean, it's kind of self-evident, but I'm just pointing it out because you'll probably get people in spiritual circles who'll make this argument, but it's a spurious argument. And with a bit of logic, you can just deconstruct it and go, well, then if that's the case, it's as valid to go and I could take a knife and stab you right now, and that would be spiritually as okay as hugging you and loving you. And they go, yeah, because that's what you're saying if you're believing in duality, which clearly doesn't make any sense. no sense at all. And that's what Yesh was saying. It's nonsensical. Don't listen to the ego's arguments, because they don't make any sense and they don't stack up. And if you will shine the light of your true awareness on them, you will see that they don't stack up. You can't believe in that thought system anymore. So you must discard it entirely. You can't have some of that insane thoughts. Oh, well, I'll just have a little bit of insanity. That's okay. You know, you've got to discard of it all. Let it all go. And give your entire mind and perception to Christ. Okay, so there's the alternative, today's quote. So maybe Jackie, if you read that.
The remembrance of perfect love's voice will teach you what letting go is, how to let go in the way it guides you to. So do not seek to understand what is beyond you yet, but let it be a way to draw you up to where you choose to perceive with your true self. Give up all else, for there is nothing else. When someone calls for help in any form, this loving awareness is the one awareness to answer for you. All that you need to do is to step back and not to interfere. Forgiveness for awakening is the task of this awareness, and it is this that will respond for you.
Okay, so does it make any difference to your understanding of it?
Yeah.
So it'll teach you. You give it. What he's saying here is be willing. Be willing to just say, I don't know how to do this, because you don't. Your ego doesn't know how to forgive, by definition. I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. And I know I don't fully get this. Do not seek to understand what is beyond you yet, but let it be a way to draw you up to where you choose to perceive with your true self. So, you know, I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again. Forgiveness is the practice of learning your true self. This is how you learn who you are, through this process of forgiveness. You don't know who you are to start with. You're confused. But as you forgive and you let go, more and more, this awakening happens. And so you don't have to know the whole picture. You don't have to know your true self fully to forgive. Clearly, because if you knew your true self, you wouldn't need to forgive. So it's just willingness, you know, to show up. People go, oh, well, I can't get this stuff. I need to be more enlightened before I start forgiving. I mean, that's a paradox, isn't it? No, you need to start forgiving, and that will make you more enlightened. So Yeshua's meeting us where we are and saying, look, this is the process that you can engage in that's going to awaken you to your true self. And I know you don't fully get it. That's why I've given you the teaching. If you were fully enlightened, you wouldn't need A Course in Miracles. You wouldn't need to study and practice, because you would just get it. But you don't. So let's meet you where you are. You don't have to worry about understanding revelation and God, and because that's beyond you at the moment. But what you can do is you can forgive the things that are in your life that need to be forgiven or let go of. You can start working on that. If you don't get it quite right to start with, keep working. It's okay. Just it's a work in progress, which is quite comforting. You don't have to be a spiritual genius. You don't have to be, awakened. You don't have to study theology. You just have to have a willingness to forgive or let go. And anyone can do that. It doesn't require, in fact, sometimes a big intellect can be a huge hindrance to that, because you're judging things from the intellectual point of view, and you can't let go of that. The more intellectual you are, often the more attached you are to that intellectual viewpoint. Look at Helen Schuckman, classic example. She could not let go. Intellect, highly developed intellect in here, could not just go, okay, yes, I get it, Yeshua, I can just go to my heart and I can let go of this, because my mind is too fixated on these on my self-concept and my worldview to accept this. So often simpler is better. Forrest Gump. There's a great another movie was watched called Philomena. Have you watched it?
Oh yeah, is that the Irish?
Judi Dench, really.
Martin, based on the story of Martin Bell finding a adopted.
Yes, and Judi Dench started. Yeah, And so she was quite a simple lady, but she could forgive and he could not. He said, I can't do this because I can't, I'm too like in the story and in my mind. And she said, but we must forgive, because she had a simple faith. You know, this is what her Christian faith told her to do. So she's like, I must forgive these, you know, really egoic nuns who, you know, behaved in what you call an evil way. But I must forgive them, because she didn't have the intellectual construct that he had that prevented him from forgiving, because he was looking at it from the scientific materialist point of view. They've really done this. This has happened, and this is terrible. You know, they've violated your rights. You know, you're the victim of this. Da da da. He couldn't get around that. Whereas she, with a simpler mindset, was like, I must forgive because that's what my faith says I must do. So I'll do it. So this is a part. I mean, understanding can come as you forgive. You can then start to understand intellectually why this makes sense. You start to see through the illusion, and you start to experience the truth that, yeah, there is only this one self. There is nothing else. There is nothing else. And I get it. Everything else is illusion. It's just a fiction in my mind I've made up. It's a story, but it has no reality. So how can I judge from that fiction and that story? Because everything that it judges is then false. That does start to make more and more sense the more you forgive. And then this teaching starts to make sense experientially. Oh, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. But when you start off, it's like trying to, you know, penetrate through a brick wall. Sometimes it's like I'm just not getting it, because he's saying stuff that's so alien to my current thought system that I can't. Well, the truth is you can't accept both together. So it's a process of replacing the one with the other, and you do that in the practice of forgiveness. You see, that's how you do it. You're installing another operating system, and you do it moment by moment as you get the opportunity to forgive. So when you get a forgiveness lesson, it's a great opportunity, because now you get another chance to install another part of the spirit system to replace the ego. So you welcome it. Okay, this is part of the reinstallation process. Great. Ongoing work, we're going to install another component. And if you see it as that way, then you welcome it, because that's what it is. It's it's an opportunity to know, to install this new operating system, and ultimately to know who you truly are. And why would you resist that? Whatever form it comes in, you know, it might be Hitler sticking in a concentration camp, but it's the same. You know, the teaching is the same, irrespective of the severity of what's happening. You see that? And that's really the message of the crucifixion. Yeshua died, and in that way, to show it doesn't matter. You know, they can crucify you and do this terrible thing, apparently, on the level of form. The teaching remains. The truth is still true. It doesn't matter. So then you learn the one lesson that can help you to transcend any difficulty and any challenge and any obstacle. That's, you know, this radical forgiveness. I can always choose to let go. That's the only remaining freedom and power that I have in a world where I seem to be enslaved in a body, into this ego thought system, is I can choose to forgive no matter what. And, you know, he was the example of that. He gave us the example. And that's the value of the crucifixion. It wasn't a sacrificial death. You know, that was just a misinterpretation by the Christians. Early Christians say, well, because they were Jews originally, and the idea of sacrifice was very much in their thought system. So, you know, in Jewish tradition, they sacrifice bulls and calves and, you know, all these animals to God to kind of appease him. So that mindset was very entrenched. So now they go, oh, well, we can't see it other than, you know, in the way that our traditional culture has caused us to see it. And so they saw it as some kind of sacrifice to atone for the sins of humanity. Just like you sacrifice a bull or calf to atone for your sin. Well, this was the biggest, but it's totally false teaching. It's, you know, it's based on a false thought system. It was really just saying, in the most extreme situation, you can still do this, and I will demonstrate, because when I'm on the cross, I will say, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Probably the most famous lines he ever uttered, because of the extreme situation he was in, to still forgive. And, you know, there's the lesson for all of us. So we can always do it, no matter how extreme the situation is. And then you have the way out of the ego, because it doesn't matter what it throws at you, you can still forgive. And then, you know, the outcome's a done deal. You will go to the Christ, no matter what your outcome on the level of form is, on the level of your mind, you ascend to the Christ, and that's the whole point of your journey. There's no other point. As he says, there's nothing else. There's no other purpose. And then when someone calls for help in any form, so you had this experience yesterday, that was a call for help, wasn't it, Sally? And this loving awareness is the one awareness to answer for you. All that you need to do is step back and not to interfere, which is what you did. You said, okay, I'm not going to interfere and let my ego take charge of this and think that I can manage the situation to keep me safe and keep my family safe, and because that's what it's trying to do. No, I'm going to step back and just allow this one awareness, loving awareness, the Holy Spirit, to come in. And then,
as you spoke, the word interfere sounded like going into fear. It's another one of those.
yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Word.
into fear,
Really.
interfere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start to see, whether that's just a synchronicity or that's how it was. I don't know, but that's why you've got interfere, because it's you're going into fear, and then you interfere in the process of the forgiveness. That's what we're here for. That's the hero's journey. That's the awakening process. That's at 1 month, moment by moment. That's what you're here to do. That's the only thing you're here to do. So forgiveness for awakening or salvation is the task of this awareness, and it is this that will respond for you. So you're going into this divine intelligence that knows what the purpose of life is in every situation, and saying, okay, well, you do it then. Because honestly, I've made a mess of it. If I do it and I interfere, I make a mess of it. And your life should have told you that by now, which is why you're here.
Just have to remember it. Yeah.
If you do it your way, then it doesn't work too well, does it?
No. I've got to log off now because I've got a 2 o'clock group to run, and it's my laptop, so Jackie gets thrown out as well. So I'll leave you both to it, and I'll.
Okay, Jackie, are you going to join on your phone? Or?
She's gone off on a phone call at the moment, but
Right.
she can log back on, can't she, if she wants to?
Yeah, she can. Okay.
All right, I'll see you Sunday, maybe.
Sunday, yeah. Maybe Sunday afternoon. How does that work?
Yeah, that works for me. Yeah.
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 12:30 or later in the afternoon, maybe. Maybe let's do a bit later, because we can then do a dog walk. We'll do a dog walk earlier. So let's say 4:30.
Yeah.
4:30 Sunday.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. See you then.
See you then.
Lovely
Bye, Lane.
weekend.
Bye.
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 Okay. So rather than a lengthy explanation of the quote, really the invitation from Yeshua and the Holy Spirit is just to simply practice forgiving or letting go of any issue in your life that is troubling you. Asking the Holy Spirit, or the part of your mind that remembers perfect love, for guidance in how to perceive the issue and the personal people involved in it. And then just be still and listen to whatever guidance arises in your mind immediately or a bit later. So sometimes it can come when you least expect it. So you're not in meditation, I remember I was asking for guidance on an issue once, and it just came when I was chopping vegetables. I was making a salad, and like suddenly the answer pops in. But I had asked, so it can come at any point. So it's just about being aware. Make a point of noticing what's arising in your mind frequently today. And you do that by constantly practicing to be vigilant of your thoughts and emotions. If you practice the breath breaks, which is the shorter practice period that Yeshua recommends. So in the course, in the workbook, he's saying do a longer practice of the lesson. So that's a longer meditation, which I've given you a recording for. And there's also a shorter breath break, which I also give you in both in the email. So there it is, email. That's 8 minutes. So hello and welcome. So you can listen to that frequently during the day. Take an 8-minute timeout. Sometimes they're a bit shorter, 5-6 minutes, depending. And in this process, I guide you through practicing the lesson and just being aware. Always it's about being aware. What's going on? What are my thoughts? What are my emotions? What's arising? Okay, I'm aware of it. If there's something that's not pleasant, then I use the lesson and my breath to help me to let it go. And so that's the process of cultivating more and more awareness in your day. And with awareness, then you can make the conscious choice to let go. With no awareness, then the ego takes over and you don't even realize you have a choice. Do you? So the awareness training is important. And really the mind training is giving us in the workbook is that training in greater awareness. Whenever you do a shorter or longer practice period, you're saying, okay, I'm going into my true awareness and I'm opening my mind to become aware of, from the Holy Spirit's perspective, your true awareness of what's going on there. And that's the way you do it. And then you just keep shining that awareness or that light onto the ego's thoughts and emotions. And they start dissipating. And then it becomes obvious from that awareness, oh, that's the fear, that's the anger, that's the frustration arising. But I can see it from this higher perspective. So if I can see it, it's not me. You start to make that distinction. And I can let it go. Because it's not me. You see? And then you practice the letting go in the breath breaks and in the meditation. Okay, I can let it go. Use the breath to help you. And you just feel a dissipation. Okay, that thought, that emotion, it's a feeling, isn't it? Thought, emotion create a feeling. And it's about letting go of that, not experiencing that anymore. And then you're opening to the spirit in that moment, which is just the pure awareness beyond all of that. That's blocking the awareness of love's presence. So practice, practice, practice. That's what he's saying here. The only way you're going to learn this is by practicing, which is common sense, really. I mean, if you want to learn a new skill on the level of form, you practice, don't you? You don't expect just to learn that skill straight away. You ongoing practice. So why do we think this is going to be anything different? It's ongoing practice of forgiveness or letting go will lead you to spiritual mastery. In the same way as practicing any skill on the level of form, it's going to lead you to mastery of that skill. You do 10,000 hours practicing anything, you get pretty good at it. Well, the same applies. He's saying this, this should be your prayer, to pray without ceasing, as quoted in the New Testament. Paul said, pray without ceasing. He didn't mean you should be, chanting and praying verbally to God without ceasing. It's the prayer of forgiveness. Prayer of forgiveness is continuously letting go of the ego's judgment. So you are rooted in your source. That's the prayer. Or a moving meditation. Another way, in the Eastern tradition, they would say, well, that's like life is a moving meditation. You're in the flow. You're in the Tao. You're praying without ceasing to the Tao when you're in flow. So your life, the way you live, your state of mind is the prayer to the divine. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's have a look at the lesson, shall we? So we've got a new insert. How much time do you have today, man?
I'm actually fine this afternoon. Yes, no, I'm
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Up to, yeah.
All right, so let's have a look at the insert. Where are we? Let's go up. Okay, so this insert is on what is a miracle. So if you read the original, which is in black above, read each sentence, and then you can see the difference. Okay, so the original says, "When I was 12, I And then go down below and read the alternative in grey. And we'll just kind of unpack each sentence as we go.
Okay. Starting from the top.
Yeah.
A miracle is a correction to, it does not create, nor really change at all.
Yeah. So then go down below. It does not.
Yes. Yeah. It does not extend nor really change at all.
So we translate create as extend.
Yeah.
Nor really change at all. So it's not creative. It's not does not extend. Interesting. Not sure about that translation. Could keep it as create, maybe.
Does not create.
We'll just keep that one as create. So creation is normally we translate it as to extend, because spirit creates means it extends into your mind. In this sense, I think he's saying it does not create anything. You're not making anything new. It doesn't really change anything at all.
Right.
It merely, and then carry on, merely looks on devastation.
Okay. Yeah. It merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. And the alternative, it merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it perceives is false.
So perceive as opposed to see. See implies, just with the physical eyes, but it's not. It's beyond that. Perception is actually more a mental experience. What it perceives is false. So that brings it into the domain of, okay, it's all perception, which is a mind created experience. Physical sight, our sense perceptions come into that to either convince us that what is false is true, or to we've got to overcome those senses often to undo that false perception and let go of what the senses are telling us. And that's interpretation. We do that by interpreting the sense perceptions. So that's what perception is. It's the interpretation of your senses, what's coming in, the sensory data that's coming in via your eyes and ears and skin and so on. But it's the interpretation of that is perception. See that? So that's why we use the word perceives. All of that is false.
Do the next one.
Yeah.
It undoes error, but does not attempt to go beyond perception, nor exceed the function of forgiveness. And the alternative. It undoes error, but does not attempt to go beyond perception, nor exceed the function of letting go.
Yeah. So forgiveness is letting go. Always. It's about letting go of negative thoughts and emotions that block your awareness of love's presence. When you let them go, then what opens up is that presence, and that reveals itself to you. And he's saying that's your only function. In this world, your only function is forgiveness or letting go, because that will restore your mind to its true nature, to its awareness of its true identity as the Christ or the one self.
Right. I'll do the next one, shall I? Thus it stays within time's limits. And the alternative. And so it stays within time's limits.
So it's still within the domain of time. To bring it back to, at the start of the conversation, we said this is all about how the Tao, this oneness, is expressed in time. And miracles are the only mechanism you have at your immediate disposal for controlling time. So you're still within time. You're having experience. Things are happening in time. There's shift and there's change. But it's what's gonna change your perception of time and it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening. Because without this shift, you still have the ego's perception of time, which keeps you away from the timeless, eternal nature of love, and you just see what is time bound. You see only the illusion. Okay, so number 6.
Yep. Yet it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening. For fear must slip away under the gentle remedy it brings. And the alternative, yet it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening. For fear must slip away under the gentle remedy it brings. Same.
Yeah. So sometimes, translation isn't necessary because it's well said.
It's exactly as it is, yeah.
But timelessness is eternity, right? Eternity is the state of no time, timeless. And time is just the perception of things changing, isn't it? What gives us a perception of time? Well, this happened and this happened and this happened. And I think it was Churchill who said, history is just one bloody thing happening after another. Which is, change. So that's time is perceptual. If nothing changes, then there's no time. So while we're in this world, there's always the things seem to change all the time, which is why time seems to be happening. Oh, well, this event happened, so that's how we measure time. Things changed over time. But actually the truth of it is it's always now. The now doesn't change. The now is the eternal truth, the eternal awareness that's in your own mind. It doesn't change. So can you be rooted in the now, which is to be rooted in your true awareness in eternity, timelessness, while all of these changes seem to be taking place on this level of form? And that's the art of living spiritually, living in an enlightened way in this world. I'm rooted in timelessness, in the now, even while these things seem to be changing. Life seems to be changing all the time, but my state of mind is not really changing. It's always now, and I'm always just my true self that's aware of the now.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not affected by the seeming changes because you realize they're on the level of form. They're an illusion. Nothing's really changed. Your true self and experience of that hasn't really changed. You're still the same loving awareness you were before time started, and that you will be after time is over. So that's why it's eternal. It's the same. It's never changed. The art of it is, can you stay in that timeless state while apparently all the shift and change is happening on the level of form in your life and in the world, and not be affected by it?
Wow, that's the challenge.
Yeah, and that's why we do the mind training. The mind training is necessary because of that. Because we don't know how to do that. The ego's taught us to be rooted in time and to be very affected. The external events affect the ego greatly. Oh, that's happened. Oh, now my fear is justified. Now my anger is justified. It gets triggered, and it's up and down on a roller coaster ride. Always affected by the external circumstances of what's happening in time. So that roots you onto the you look at the timeline of consciousness. It roots you down here. You see all the dramas and events of your life. If you make them real and there's no awareness of anything else, then all you have is the little separate self that you think of as you, that's trying to deal with all of these situations that are happening and trying to find some kind of meaning and purpose in them. Which it will try and do by avoiding pain and seeking pleasure, trying to find some kind of meaning in that. But without the transcendent meaning, timeless meaning that comes from this domain, you never will find meaning, because there is no meaning here. That's the point. You won't find meaning in the world unless you reference to something beyond the world. Many people have tried, but finding meaning on the level of form, well, it's obvious. Well, it all leads one way. It all leads to death. So what's the meaning of that then? Why come into life, have all these experiences, a lot of which are difficult, challenging, and painful, only to die? What's the meaning of that? Many people have tried to give it a meaning, but it doesn't have a meaning. And that's
So
what Yeshua's saying.
Even for things where you've got a great gift in art and, you know, the wonderful things of the ego, how would that be part of?
Well, it depends on if you give it to the spirit and you're using that talent to express source into the world, then that would be part of the Holy Spirit's awakening process plan. Yeah.
Right.
So that can be the case. But if you use it egoically and you go, well, I'm a great artist, and aren't I so special because I'm better than everyone else because I paint great art, and it's used to confirm your separate self concept, that you're a very special person because of this talent and ability that makes you more special than everyone else, then that's the ego's use of it.
Of course.
See, so it depends. I mean, ultimately, the ego has invented all of the differences. So someone has a more talent than someone else in something like art, only because of the ego. Because in the spirit, everything's the same. You know, there's no different abilities. There's nothing to separate anyone from anyone else. It's all the same. One awareness. So the ego's invented all these things, but now the spirit can use them. Okay, well, you have a talent for art or whatever it is. Okay, well, give it to me and allow this awareness to come through in your art and paint what you're inspired to paint. And then this becomes another channel for communicating the spirit into the world and helping people to awaken. And now now your talent is being put to good use. Now your talent has a true meaning and purpose behind it. And then that person would feel that, you know, what they're doing is meaningful and has a true purpose. If they were using that talent, misusing it for the ego, they wouldn't find a true meaning and purpose there. Ultimately, that would lead them down a path where they might end up feeling, you know, very depressed. Even
like George Best, you know, George Best, he had a huge talent, but he wasn't happy in the end.
Yeah, he had a huge talent, but it was all ego, you know, ego-based. Oh, I've got a great talent, so that makes me very special. So, yes, I make the money, I have the girls, all of that stuff. And it was about, you know, George Best, the special character, but he's drinking himself to death because he's not happy. And he can't accept who he really is. Whereas take alternatives. See, the spirit always gives us an alternative. Take Pele. He just passed away.
Yes.
A few days ago, about 2 weeks ago. You know, what made him such a great footballer was that he was a very spiritual man. He was connected to source, and his football was the expression of his connection with source into the world. And you saw that. It came, I mean, he's extremely talented, but there was something more than the ego that came through. You know, there was a greatness about the person, about the spirit that was inspiring him, that transcended the ego. So people say, you know, he was the greatest of all time because it wasn't just about football.
In his ego.
It wasn't
like
just about I'm the greatest.
Yeah, like Muhammad Ali, he was another one, the boxer. There was a greatness about him, so he's obviously came from the spirit.
Yeah, so you know, that's what elevates people into the realm of greatness. You look at the George Bests of the world, he was probably as talented or more talented than Pele. Huge talent, but he squandered it. He didn't use it correctly. Maradona, another one, huge talent, but he squandered. You know, he used it for egoic purposes, and so you know that came around, and he wasn't particularly happy, and he cheated. You know, he was a cheat. denied the very essence of his game, which was football, and he handballed it in the World Cup to
Oh,
win.
yes. Yes.
So, it's a cheat. You can't. That's I
True.
think FIFA made him the greatest, joint with Pele, the greatest footballer of the last century. I'd argue, no way. You can't put them on the same level,
No.
because different, maybe talent-wise, can't argue he had talent, but that's not, football's not just about talent. It's about the whole person and the character
It's
and
big-
honoring
big
the spirit of the
bullshit.
game.
Yeah.
And really Pele, to me, he honored the spirit of the game. He wrote an autobiography, My Life on the Beautiful Game. He was saying it's about the beauty of the game. It's not about winning or losing. It's about being in the moment, in tune with the spirit, expressing the spirit in the game. That's what makes it a beautiful game. And then that came through in his playing, and people saw that, and so it connected them with a part of themselves that we all want, that we all yearn for, which is the spirit. And so then Pele becomes a spiritual teacher through football, and that was the great.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So in practical life, you get the examples of these people using their gift for either spiritual or egoic purposes, and you see the difference in outcome. So we can learn. The examples are there. You have a great gift. I mean, Pele had huge success in his life, but I don't think it never got to him egoically. There was a sense of something beyond that. He didn't identify with the character. He realized that he was just an instrument, kind of being played by the divine on a level. Whether he had that, how he exactly how he framed it, I don't know. But I've read some of his autobiography, and you see that there's a sense of something else. There's a transcendent dimension to his life, and he brought that into his football. If there's no transcendent dimension, even if you have a great gift, you'll create suffering for yourself and others. That gift will be used by the ego, as you see with people like George Best and Maradona. They didn't have the same access to the transcendent, and so their gifts were squandered. And there was the dark shadow of the ego that haunted them their whole careers.
Yeah, it's happened to so many of them, the celebrities, and over the years.
Yeah, because they're missing. You see, what the ego says is you will find meaning and purpose just on the red timeline. So go for the success. You're not a worthy self now, but go for the success. When you become rich, famous, do whatever the ego tells you to do, then you will be okay. Then you'll feel happy. That's the story. And it doesn't work, because you get there, you've got all the riches and fame and success, and yet internally you still feel like you're not enough. You're not good enough, because you haven't accepted the spirit. And so it's never enough. And then you hit a wall. It's like, well, I've done everything on the ego's told me to do, and I'm still not happy. So where do I go now?
So would you say Ronaldo, the young guy who does a lot for charity and so forth, but yet he lives a very famous, rich, what level is he on? He seems to be between the two. He's like in the ego and in the spirit.
I think people have if he hasn't let go of his ego completely, you'll see both coming through.
Yeah, I can see both coming through with him, definitely.
Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, I'd agree. It was really, I think he was distraught. You saw him; he was crying after Portugal went out of the World Cup, because he wanted to win the World Cup. That was going to be his kind of exit, and he probably wants to be the greatest footballer. And
so that's from the ego. Yeah,
that's the ego. But then maybe there's another part of him that's grateful for what he's experienced. I think he came from very humble beginnings, and so he's giving to charity, and that's the spiritual part.
Yeah,
if he could integrate those, then he would take that's his life lesson. Maybe
he's still young. He's young.
Yeah, well, maybe in time he'll reflect when he retires and go, okay, actually, really, it's not about
yes.
that ego personality. It was very temporary. and that's going to go when he's no longer playing and he's fading now because he's getting old. There's other stars coming. It's like, well, that's not sustainable. That's not going to be a sustainable source of happiness, because it's going to fade away. And in 10 years' time, no one will. Well, people might remember him a bit, but it's like he's no longer the flavor of the month. He's just now an aging football star.
A cruel world for the ego in that respect.
Yeah, very cruel. So what you attach to is no longer. It's taken away. So you have to find something transcendent. You have to find something beyond the ego, where you're not attached to the form identity. And you go, well, that's fine. I'm aging. That's no longer happening on the level of form, but that's okay. It's all right. It's just part of the flow of life. I'm still who I am. I think Pele had a very successful career after his football. He went into business, politics. He was an ambassador for football. And he lived so in the same way, an inspired life. He was a poet. He wrote music, wrote poetry, music. So it was like there's something beyond life, beyond football, and being idolized as the greatest player ever.
Never went to his head.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if it had, he could not have sustained. I mean, he was the best footballer in the world for 20 odd years. Quite amazing. He couldn't have sustained it if it was egoic. And you saw the example with Maradona. He couldn't sustain it because he was doing it from the ego. And so he ultimately self-sabotaged and he got into drugs. And well, if you do that, you can't maintain that level of performance. Not possible. So his career lasted much less time because he wasn't doing it from an inspired place. So there's the example.
Diagram.
There's the examples we have. Even success, you have to forgive your success. So it's not about my separate self. This is all just the spirit flowing through me. If I have success, it's because of the spirit, because of the the source coming through me, and I give everything to God. That's humility. It's not me. It's just happening through me. Then I can't be personally proud of it because there's no personal self anymore. It's all the spirit coming through me, and that's humility, which characterizes greatness. I think Pele had a humility that others didn't, because he was like, it's not me, it's coming from the transcendent dimension, which is what greatness is. So no doubt in my mind he was the greatest footballer because he accessed that dimension and brought it through in his football in a way that no one else has to date. That doesn't mean we won't have another one, but they're quite rare. These kinds of characters are rare. It's like the Yeshuas and the Buddhas of the world. They don't come along all the time. It's quite rare that someone is that connected and tapped in. And then in his case, he had a spectacular gift for football as well. And so just able to right time, right person at the right time, because football was just emerging as kind of the global sport that it is, to live that life and give everyone inspiration via the the medium of football. Okay, so back to our miracle, and that's what the miracle's about, living in that miraculous domain. Okay, so if you want to read number 2 then.
A miracle contains the gift of grace, for it is given and received as one. The alternative: a miracle contains the gift of grace, for it is given and received as one. They're both the same.
Yeah, I think just read the alternative because nothing's actually
So
just letting.
alternative.
All we've done is change. We've changed forgiveness to letting go.
So, I see. Right. Okay. And shall I go on to number 2?
Yeah.
And so it illustrates the law of truth. The world does not obey because it fails entirely to understand its ways.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
3. A miracle.
It illustrates the law of truth. So it's an illustration. That's what the miracle is. It's illustrating that the truth works, that there's this transcendent dimension and it's now coming through in the world. And it's illustrating that this works much better than the ego.
Mhm.
Because the ego fails entirely to understand its ways. So the ego cannot understand any of this stuff. Ego will not allow you to go into flow, miracles, taking your success as just a sign, a gift from God, not being personally invested in it. The ego can't understand any of that.
Mhm. A miracle inverts perception. Oops. A miracle inverts perception that was upside down before, and so it ends the strange distortions that appeared. So,
Yeah.
so and finally, now perception is open to the truth. And 5, now letting go is seen as justified. Mm-hmm.
So now forgiveness is seen as justified, letting go. So it's always justified to let go because what you're seeing isn't true. That's the essential teaching. It takes a lot of learning. It takes great learning to apply this to every situation without exception. And that process of forgiveness or letting go is the correction of your mind. So your mind was upside down, you believed in the ego. This is how you turn it right side up. And this is how you end the strange distortions that appeared. So it turns our perception around. It's like the those balls where you turn it around and then everything goes up in the air and it settles again. I don't know what they're called. But that's kind of what we're doing here. It's the process of turning it. Well, it was upside down. It's been sitting upside down all along. Now you turn it right side up. As you do that, everything goes up in the water, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it can feel like. The shift of change of perception. Oh, my world's changing. I can feel uncertain. I can feel like everything's a bit unstable, doubt. It's all part of the journey because your entire world has to be called into question. It all goes up in the air, and now it's got to find a new equilibrium and settle. And so that's why spiritual transformation and awakening is not easy, because your existing perception and life based on that has to be called into question and turned right side up. And so Yesha says it can seem like everything's falling apart, but actually it's just being turned right side up, and you've been going through the process of perceiving it correctly.
So you'll know when you're in that stage. There's no words can describe it, I suppose. You just will only know when you're in peace, that's my guess. When you're walking around and you see love in everybody, I guess.
Yeah, it's a peaceful, it's a very peaceful, happy, kind of flowing state of mind. It doesn't mean challenges don't come in, but you in an enlightened state, you just dismiss them. It's like, no, I'm not.
No judging. We're looking at people.
I'm just not going to go there. I'm not going to take the ego's bait.
Yeah.
While you're training, you get tempted, and then the ego can come in, and the mind starts judging and takes you down the wrong track. And then he's saying, well, when that happens, notice it quickly and correct it. Correct it with forgiveness or letting go. And that's, then it's a course correction. So he's giving this to us, knowing, yes, of course we're going to make mistakes. The ego is going to come in. It's your default thought system. It's going to come in over and over and over again. But every time it comes in, if you can correct it with this true forgiveness or letting go, then you neutralize it. And that's, that's the process of awakening. Just systematically undoing it. Bringing it into, bringing yourself into your right mind. Opening your mind to the truth. And the more you do that, the more you go, well, actually, there's no other way to live. Letting go forgiveness is always justified. This is what we should all be doing all the time.
It's a challenge, though, for example, if you've got a partner or, you know, people that you work with or whatever that are in the very judgmental mind, you know, like the Andy who I work with, he's very much a cynical, more, so it is a lot of forgiving and trying to be able to get along with that person. But, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, and it can be very challenging because the thought systems don't marry at all.
Yeah.
In fact, they're completely opposed. But beyond, you know, beyond his ego, he is the Christ. That's what you've got to see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just a cry for love, and he's actually asking you for help. So as a miracle worker, you know, that's your job, but you've got to start with your own perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to perceive it correctly. Okay, this is a cry for love. What he's showing me isn't true. What he's showing me is the ego in the mirror. If I believe it, then I'm in my ego. And that's how it works. I see what I am. I don't see reality. There's no reality in perception. I see what I want to see. I see what I've identified with. So if he's pushing your buttons and you
It's
find
not so much
upset or angry, then you must be in the ego as well. And then
not so much he's pushing my buttons. It's more a case of how do I relate to him, because I've got to work with him and make conversation with him, but it's sometimes a bit difficult because it's certainly not pushing my buttons. I can feel his sort of frustrations and his ego. He's very cynical and chooses to see the darker side of life. So I try and relate with him, even though it's not so much pushing my buttons. It's a bit I'm struggling.
Well, if there's any struggle, it's pushing a button.
Oh, well, there you go. Yes.
If there's any kind of, I'm struggling with this. Okay, well, why are you struggling with it?
Right. So, but the language of the course he would just laugh at that. You know,
you recognize that it's not true. So it's correcting your own mind, finding peace no matter what.
Yeah.
And from that peaceful place, okay, how do I respond? Am I called upon to say something, to do something? Okay, I give this to the Spirit.
Okay.
You see, so it's not you struggling anymore. It's the Spirit coming in, and you say, okay, well, I give this to you. So you show me. How can I be truly helpful in the situation? Because this is another mind that's lost in the darkness, that is looking for the light. And I'm the miracle worker in the situation. I have more awareness of this. So, okay, I don't know how to do this, but you do. Spirit knows. So how does Andy awaken?
Right.
And then you know, if you're open to that, it'll show you moment by moment.
Okay, well, I shall try that when I see him.
Yeah. Just okay, I'm not going to judge. I'm going to be in the state of true awareness, and whatever he's saying doesn't penetrate. So you don't let it bring to mind the thoughts and the emotions of the ego. That's really the key. If you feel that egoic energy arising in you, then that's what you need to let go of. Remember, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the at one moment for himself or herself. So accepting that one moment is in the moment. Okay, I accept that none of this is true, that only my true awareness is true. And I can stay rooted in that awareness even while I'm having a conversation with him. And he might be talking cynically about the world and, talking egoically. Your practice would then be, okay, I don't necessarily have to say anything. Let me find that calm place of freedom in my mind that's not affected by this. That's number one. So find that in your own mind. So that's an internal process. You can do some letting go in your own mind. Use the lesson, do a breath. Find that place. And then from that state of mind, what are you called upon to do? Maybe you say something. Maybe you do something. Maybe you just say, well, Andy, I appreciate your perspective, but that's just not true. Because actually there's another way of looking at it, and you say, maybe that's what you say. Maybe you just keep quiet. I don't know. The guidance will come. What you've got to trust is the guidance will come in the moment if you're in the right state of mind.
Yeah. yeah,
in
yeah,
that forgiven state, calm, quiet, peaceful, then the guidance will come from that state of mind, which is the Holy Spirit. What should you say? What should you do? And it comes spontaneously. It'll just be like, oh, this now presence takes over because you've allowed it to, and it speaks the words, and it says whatever's needs to be said, and it does whatever needs to be done. And so it's great practice, you know. Think of him as a sparring partner.
Right. Yeah.
That's
No,
what
it's
he is.
interesting. Right. No,
Great
thank you.
training and forgiveness. So you need the forgiveness lessons to learn this. So there you have an opportunity to learn it through, you know, this person who now becomes, okay, he's giving me the lessons all the time in this, which is great mind training. If I don't have that test, then I don't get the lessons, then how do I learn?
Move forward. Move forward.
How do I
Yeah.
learn this? Oh,
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
So you see how you just change your perspective and you go, oh, this is actually good. It's good that I've got someone like this.
Yeah.
In one of the teachings, it's the Toltec tradition, a guy called Carlos Castaneda. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's written a number of books. The Toltec tradition, and in it, there's I think 4 things that he said are necessary for enlightenment, and one of them was a petty tyrant. So interesting. So you actually need the initiate in this Toltec tradition who's going towards awakening and enlightenment, needs a petty tyrant in their lives to come in and be the ego and show them, you know, what the ego is. And then they have to overcome that. The struggle to overcome that is part of their awakening process. That's actually in the traditions, and you need that.
Right.
Part of your hero's journey. So, you know, if you have that, anyone is
be grateful.
The ego is a petty tyrant. You need to work out how to overcome that. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to be friends or partners with them for the rest of your life.
No.
There is a learning. You know, there's a time, and it's like, okay, can I learn the lesson and then move on? And then when it's time to move on, you'll be told. You know, the guidance will come. Okay, you can move on, or the relationship naturally comes to an end, or maybe that person transforms. You don't know. Maybe, you know, you're open to that possibility.
That would be a miracle.
Well, but there's no difficulty in miracles, as Yeshua says.
Yeah.
So maybe you bring that, you know, enough light for that person to have an awakening and go, actually, you know what? Maybe Elaine's right. Maybe there is something else than just a cynical, dark kind of worldview. Maybe there is another way of looking at the world. Maybe there is a way I can really be happy. Because that's what he wants. Everyone just wants that, and cynicism doesn't make you happy. So maybe, you know, you're open to that possibility. But if that doesn't happen, you haven't lost anything, because it's your own practice. Your sole responsibility is to accept that one-ment for yourself. You see, so you've lost nothing.
Yeah,
it's all good. Whatever he chooses to do, you're using it for your own awakening, which means you can't lose. You're gaining the truth and the spirit, and that's that's a huge gift. He's giving you. If you didn't have a sparring partner like that, then maybe you remain in the ego and don't get the lessons. But the way the world works is that you will get those lessons. That's why we keep getting the challenges. People go, resolve one thing and then there's just another thing.
Here we go. Yes.
Never-ending problem. Because that's the nature of the ego. It's got to bring in problems to activate the separate self, and what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body, so that it can experience itself as separate. That's its dream. That's what it's got to do. So that's why the world is one never-ending series of problems.
It is.
But within the problems, now the Holy Spirit comes in and says, okay, well, those are your opportunity to awaken. Every problem becomes the opening to the solution if you allow it to. And that's what forgiveness does. So forgiveness is the reinterpretation of all of these problems from the Holy Spirit's perspective to help you to awaken to your true self, which is your only purpose. And you need the problems in order to do that. So bring it on then. So bring on the problems. Great, because those are showing me my own blocks. Every external problem that I perceive is a mirror of a block internally that I have to the awareness of love's presence.
And that goes for even your own. Say if you've got ache or something. Is that the same?
Any problem, it's all the same. Anything on the level of form that you find problematic is a mirror for you of an internal block. It's a belief that isn't true, that's false, that's not coming from the spirit. So now in the mirror of your world, you get to see your blocks. You see how useful that is. The world's the mirror that shows you your own blocks, and then that helps you to remove them.
Fascinating.
So that's the reinterpretation of the world by the Holy Spirit. Everything is just a mirror showing you either the spirit. Sometimes you can see that, and that's beautiful. And there's no need to correct that. You can just appreciate it. If it's showing you love, appreciate it. Just enjoy it. If it's showing you the ego, then that's a mirror of your own ego, which is now projected out onto the screen. This is a 4-dimensional screen of time and space, 3 dimensions of space and time, projected out onto the screen in the virtual movie theater we're in, to show you what those blocks are. Now, how would you know what those blocks are if you couldn't see them?
Interesting.
So you see how valuable this is. The ego, the ego's defense mechanism, which is the world, it's used as projection and perception mechanism to enslave your mind into the separate self, is the very same mechanism that the Holy Spirit will reinterpret and use to free you. And the ego's got no answer to that if you keep doing it. If you keep reinterpreting those blocks and the whole projection perception mechanism through the Holy Spirit, you say, okay, well, this is showing me the block. It's showing me, it's the mirror that's showing me my own false belief, and therefore I can let it go. Because it's now conscious. It's not buried in my subconscious. I've brought it into conscious awareness, and I can now see it correctly with the help of this higher awareness called the Holy Spirit, and I can choose to let it go. Then I can remove the block. So now it's no longer a block in my subconscious. I've freed myself from that. And
no matter how tragic it can be or minor, they're
all the same. Exactly. This, whether it's tragic, the mass tragedy of the Holocaust, all those people dying, or whether it's just a minor illness in your own body, it's the same thing. And that's what he's training us to do. He's training us to perceive everything from this one true perspective, which is the Holy Spirit, that doesn't make exceptions, sees everything the same, says, okay, it's all just part of the illusion, but by perceiving it correctly and letting it go, you can awaken from that illusion, and you can free your mind. And the bigger the block, so something like the Holocaust, it's a huge opportunity. It's a massive forgiveness lesson. So a huge opportunity for transformation is in there if you accept it, if you accept the lesson. Which is, someone like Viktor Frankl did. That experience completely transformed his life, and it brought him into doing his true work, what he was meant to do, his special function, as the Course calls it, fulfilling his higher purpose in the world. So, that his major point of pain was also his point of awakening. Your point of pain is your point of awakening, your point of purpose. So if you've had a major trauma in your life and you reinterpret that, that's your awakening. And then that will reveal your true purpose, which will often be to help other people to overcome that trauma, because you've done it. And then you have, your true purpose, and that plays out. In his case, he was a psychotherapist, but he was really a healer. It's like, I'm going to teach the world how to heal the mind of a major trauma through this, psychotherapy. So, that's, you look at all the people who've led, really meaningful, great lives. They all apply this principle. They choose, often in great difficulty, they choose correctly. And that's what elevates their lives to the level of greatness. They choose the spirit rather than the ego.
So, but what about just us ordinary folks, just householders that...
Doesn't matter. Make the same choice. You didn't have a major, was Viktor Frankl anything special? No, he just, the circumstances of life, he got taken to a concentration camp, which you'd go, well, that's about the worst thing can happen to you.
That way, yes, definitely.
It's not likely to happen to any of us, but that's what he had to face. But that was, that was his awakening. He used that to awaken. He could have just died in a concentration camp as another victim of the Holocaust, but he chose to survive and awaken and use the experience to teach the world a profound lesson. And that's what made his life great. Was he anything special? No, we all have that capacity. Or an ordinary householder is the awakened Christ, potentially, if they open to it.
So eventually we'll all be that awakened Christ, but maybe in thousands of years. Let's hope the ego
it doesn't have to take thousands of years for you. Couldn't be in this lifetime.
Oh, right, yes. But the idea of the game is for all of us to become Christ.
Everyone ultimately, that's the journey. And that's going to take, Yeshua even says it, it'll take millions of years. Just as the ego's taken billions of years. We're like 16 billion years into the dream, apparently. So the cosmologists tell us something like 15 billion years. So it might take an enormously long amount of time for everyone to awaken, but it doesn't have to take that time for you, because you can collapse time right now, go into the now, let it all go, and awaken to your true self now, if you choose to. So you can make this your last lifetime if you practice this radical forgiveness he's teaching us, or you can come back and do another one and do another 100 if you want. It's up to you. But once you come to a teaching like this, you go, well, what's the point? Why would I want another 100 lifetimes? To accomplish what? The lesson will always be the same. In every lifetime, it'll be, well, can you forgive and let go of your ego and find the spirit? There's no other purpose. Well, once you've got that, you've realized that, it's like the game's over for the ego. It's like, well, there's only one purpose here. So why not get it over with? Just accept the Christ, accept who you are. Stop delaying. Because time is just a delaying tactic of the ego. To delay the awakening to who you really are. Okay? And number 3? Number 3,
is that the alternative one? 13.3, letting go.
So read the original, because we've got some. The reason I'm asking you to read the original is it'll start to get you familiar with the language, the translations of what the terms are in the alternative.
Okay. Forgiveness is the home of miracles. Number 2, the eyes of Christ deliver them to all they look upon in mercy and in love. And 3, perception stands corrected in the sight.
Just translate as you go, right? So read number 1 and translate.
So the alternative to number 1 was letting go is the home of miracles, instead of forgiveness is the home of miracles.
So when I let go, I invite the miracle. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Remember, the miracle is the correction of your mind. So when you let go, in that process, there's a miracle, because there's a transformation in your mind. You're no longer in the ego's thought of fear or anger or whatever. That's been let go of. And there's a sort of a clearer, purer awareness that's arising. So that process, the internal aspect, is a miracle. And then often that shows up externally as well. So you have these two dimensions of reality going on. The internal, so there's a shift there. That's where the miracle starts. And that happens through letting go. So when you let go, then you experience the miracle of your true awareness coming forth, arising more in your mind, and then that can extend out into the exterior, and you can start to see a different behavior, maybe from yourself, from others, different outcomes, which then confirm, you go, I had a shift here and I see a shift here, and you start connecting the dots and going, they're actually connected. This is actually the cause of this. They are connected. They're not my life is not some sort of set of random events that happens. It's related to my mindset, my beliefs. And then that confirms to you that belief is true. So you need the miracles on the level of form to teach you that, yes, I'm on the right track. This thought system is true. Keep going. So they signpost to keep you going on the right track.
Mm.
Why it says forgiveness is the home of miracles. It's where they arise, the source of them in this forgiveness. Okay, number 2.
2, the eyes of your true self, deliver them to all they look upon in mercy and in love.
So the eyes of your true self, deliver them. So that change of mind, change of perception, is the delivery of the miracle to all they look upon in mercy and in love. So it's like you're extending that miracle to those people and things that you perceive in this loving awareness.
Mm. Mm.
How about all they look upon with loving awareness?
Mm-hmm. To do the next one?
Yeah.
Perception stands correct in the sight, and what was meant to curse has come to bless.
So perception stands corrected in its sight. So this is in the true self. It's not a his or her. It's a self concept. Christ transcends male, female.
Mm.
So hence we use the it's. Stands corrected in its sight. What was meant to curse has come to bless. So let's say you have an ego challenge. Someone's physically or verbally attacked you or something like that, and it's malicious. The person wanted to hurt you. What was meant to curse has now come to bless, because actually you're going to use this for your awakening, to let go of your own false belief in the ego. So you've transformed the curse into a blessing.
Mm.
Okay.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Each lily of forgiveness offers all the world the silent miracle of love. The alternative? Each thought of letting go, is that number 4, is it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Each thought of letting go offers all the world the silent miracles of love.
So that's what a lily of forgiveness means. It's the thought of letting go.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, I love the poetry of this. Lily of forgiveness is beautiful, but a lot of people might not necessarily understand what that means. What is a lily of forgiveness then? Well, it's a thought of letting go. So I've got some issue and it's difficult, and I choose to let it go, and I say, no, this isn't true, this isn't real. I'm letting go of my thoughts and my emotion about the person and the situation. And that's the lily of forgiveness when you do that.
Right.
So the translation just makes it very kind of practical.
Yeah.
And you want the poetry, you read the original. Sometimes I keep the poetic nature of it, but unfortunately, all too often people read it and lily of forgiveness doesn't really penetrate. They don't really know what that even means.
Mm-hmm.
Because it
sounds very nice.
Sounds beautiful. It's poetic, but
yes.
Does it actually teach you what it means? Does it actually help you to know what he's talking about necessarily? Yeah. In which case, it can sound beautiful. It's great. We can read the poetry. I don't want to change the words because it's so poetic and beautiful, but I don't really understand it. Well, that's not really the point.
Mm-hmm.
Point is to try and understand this and let it transform your own mind and how you live. So that's that's got to be quite practical. It's got to be applicable to your life. So when you let go, you offer all the world a silent miracle of love, because that love is now coming through you, and it's being offered into the quantum field. That love is coming through you. You're a mind that's connected with every other mind. You're offering it to all the world, as he says. And that is on an energetic level, that's true. On the level of form, that can never be true, because you offer it to one person or two people or whatever. People might go, how's that offered to all the world? But you've got to go beyond the ego's conception of what the world is. He's talking about it on the level of the interior domain. It's offered to all the world, because in this interior is a collective interior where we're all connected. It's being offered to that. Your love is now going into the collective, and it's being contributing to the collective consciousness, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And that collective is then what leads to individual behavior and to the collective patterns of behavior we call systems. So one person who really does this, let's take Yeshua as a good example. When he really went deeply into the spirit, he did profoundly change the culture. Huge, cultural shift as a result of his life, and that changed systems. The entire world changed after he came, because everything got reoriented, and you then had the rise of the Christian church, and the whole system that came as a result of a shift that he had internally. So that's how you change the world. In fact, you can most world-changing events, you can look at the spiritual reason, and there's always a shift, a spiritual cause behind it. And if it's beneficial, then someone has had a mystic experience and they've deeply connected with source. If it's not beneficial, in the case of Hitler, it was also spiritual. It was just going in the opposite direction. That was all the result of deep spiritual denial of the truth, actively choosing the darkness, because that's what they were doing. Conscious choice for the darkness.
Like Putin as well, he's the same, isn't he? Putin.
Yeah. So these
forces, the light seems to be flushing him out, I think.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So, like, what happens is that then it comes to a head, because the darkness, the ego can't help itself. It just has to try and consume everything. And then, the light arises and says, no, you can't have it. We will oppose. And then you get a conflict on the level of form. But in the end, it's all conflict is happening in the interior domain. All conflict is between the spirit and the ego. Those two thought systems, and that's then the interplay of those then plays out in the world, the exterior world that we see and we perceive. But it's the interior domain that's creating it, which you can do something about, because you can change your mind. That's what he's saying. You always have access. Miracle says you can always change your mind, no matter what's happening on the external world. It can be as dark and as enslaving as the ego can imagine, but you always have access to your own mind. No one can force you to believe anything. They can say they'll kill your body. Okay, well, kill my body then. You can't force me to believe. So that's the one remaining freedom we all have. Okay, and then so each thought of letting go offers all the world a silent miracle of love. And each is laid, read the original. Each is laid.
Sorry, do you want me to read there?
Yeah, number 5. Each is laid.
Number 5, yeah. And each is laid before the word of God upon the universal altar to creator and creation in the light of perfect purity and endless joy. And the alternative, and each is laid before the message of perfect love upon the universal foundation to source and its extension in the awareness of perfect purity and endless joy.
Okay, any thoughts on that? Each is laid before the message of perfect love. So it's this message that's coming upon the universal foundation to source. So when we let go, it's like an offering we make to this perfect love, perfect loving awareness. Upon the universal foundation to source, which is love, and its extension. So love is extended in the world through its extensions, which is us, in the awareness of perfect purity and endless joy. So this all happens in perfect purity, what I call pure formless awareness of perfect love, and that is a very joyful experience. Pure formless awareness of perfect love is your liberated state. You're just aware. There's no limits to that. So you're in an infinite and an eternal, a timeless state of mind. And then naturally peace and joy arise in your mind in that state. Happiness just comes. You don't have to seek for it. It comes as a natural part of the awakening to who you really are. Okay, so number 3. Now, I'll ask you every now and then. Just try this. So, can you summarize that paragraph? What is he saying in the paragraph? Just overall, like what's the key idea he's expressing there?
Well, it's just letting go, isn't it? Letting go.
Yeah. The letting go offers, love to the world. That's the means of offering love to the entire world. And it's an extension of love, which is everyone. So when you let go, then you open your mind to love again, and that's actually a gift to everyone, because it goes into the mind which we share, the collective interior mind, and that can influence other people because we're all connected. The more people do this and go into loving awareness, the more the collective's going to be affected and raised up into the light of Christ consciousness. So the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept that one-man for himself. In other words, in this quadrant, in the individual interior, only you can accept this. No one can accept it for you. You must do that. And then you contribute to the culture, just by definition, because that's the way the integral model works. And that's going to start extending or expressing out in your behavior. So then you contribute to some changing the world on the level of form as well, because this changes. And you contribute to creating better systems, because your mind and your behavior now contribute to creating a better world. If we all did that, then the current systems, they are changing, but they'll change faster. If they no longer reflect the culture, so that's the collective consciousness of people in that society, then the systems must change, and they do change. So it all comes down to the individual transformation. That's what everything comes down to. World history, systems, all of these can be collapsed. You see, ultimately, this is the cause of all of it. So it takes you beyond the model. This is a dualistic model, and it takes you into the light in your own mind, which is just true awareness, which is purely an individual experience, a subjective experience. That takes you beyond the model, deeper into the model, or outside, above the model, into an awareness where there is no individual, collective, or interior, exterior. Those distinctions, dualities, polarities just disappear, and you realize you just are the light. One singular awareness. So, these models, I'll show you these models. They're useful within the construct of the ego to help you escape from the ego, to help you realize that, okay, if I go deeper into this individual interior quadrant and accept my one responsibility, which is accepting that one-man for myself, and that is how I will free myself from the model. And once I'm in spirit, in heaven, I no longer need the model. The model is only useful to help me to escape. See? So that's what we do. We're using everything for awakening. That's its only purpose and function. And once that purpose is done, then there's no need for the model anymore. And there would be no need for learning, practice. None of this stuff would be necessary anymore once you've understood, because you're already there. Why do you need to practice what you already understand, as Yeshua says? You don't. Okay. So number 4, the miracle is taken first on faith.
The miracle is taken first on faith because to ask for it implies the mind has been prepared to conceive what it cannot see and does not understand.
Yeah. That hasn't changed. Has been made ready. I just changed been made ready to being prepared. So it requires a faith first, because initially we come to this and our mind is very much in the external domain. Most people's worldview is that this is all real. The external world is more real than the internal world. That's the way they've been brought up and conditioned. And so initially it takes faith to say, okay, but I'm going within into this unknown world of my own mind, and I have the faith that that this is true. So he's saying here, we must take it on faith first. It requires faith to kickstart the process. So ask for it implies the mind has been prepared to conceive of what it cannot see and does not understand. So this is an inner willingness to say, okay, I don't really get this yet, but there's something in me that is telling me to go this route and start down this track of letting go and forgiving, even if I don't fully understand why yet. And that would be the call to adventure on the hero's journey. Which you've just accepted by being here. You said, okay, I don't necessarily fully understand it yet, but I'm up for it. I'm willing. So here I am, and I'm coming into this process so that the Spirit can help me to forgive more and increase my understanding, so that ultimately, I get it. I fully get it. In which case, you don't need to practice anymore. But there's a process to that. And that process is, yet faith, you want to read the second one, yet faith will bring its witnesses.
Yet faith will bring its witnesses to show that what I rested on is really there.
What it rested on.
Sorry, what it rested on. Yeah. Faith.
So it shows us in this external domain, it shows us confirmation. Okay, so I had the faith, I wasn't sure, I went there, and then I get a confirmation in my external experience, and it tells me that was correct and true. And now it's just been confirmed for you. And that's, the external aspect of the miracle is necessary to teach us that, to say, yes, you're on the right track, keep going. This is the right thought system. And so it becomes a reinforcement of this change. And the more we do it, the more we change, the more we get the reinforcement, it becomes a positive cycle, which will ultimately raise you up above this entire model. And the duality of it collapses, and you go, actually, there's just one awareness. And I'm just seeing that awareness everywhere. And that's and the integral model also has the idea of levels. So quadrants, but there's levels of awareness. So mind, body, mind, soul, spirit. These levels of awareness in the mind. And so through applying this integral model, the quadrants, you start awakening and going higher in your mind and transcending the level of form. Okay, so let's go back to teaching. I see Sally just posted another miracle.
Yes, I just saw something there. Yes,
This is
just
I had an aha today. Let's just
oh, it is nice when that happens, isn't it?
share my screen. I had an aha today that I've not chosen to unconditionally see my parents as love. Done the forgiveness, letting go of any and all upsets connected to with them. However, hadn't until today chosen to recognize them as love. Every day is a new lesson, literally. So every day is like if you're doing these sessions, every day is a masterclass. And your ego can't sustain against that kind of intensity. You got to start waking up much more quickly, which is what happens. And then, the beauty of being in a group is you see real time. Other people are shifting, and they post in their insights, and so we help each other.
Lovely.
Awake. And that's the value of community rather than doing it on your own. Wow, another miracle. Sally's had a miracle. Her miracle is my miracle. Because there's really only one mind.
Encouraging. Yeah, very encouraging.
Exactly. And you start to go, well, I can do it then too. This is very possible. We can all do it. If you do the work. I mean, Sally just shows up to every session, pretty much.
Right.
She very seldom misses a session. So
practice.
Practice, yeah, exactly. Practice. But it's like anything. If you want to become a master at anything, let's say you're a musician, you want to learn the piano. Well, it's going to take, you want to become a concert level pianist, it's going to take hours and hours of practice every day, isn't it? You're not just going to expect to do once a week, you're going to do a little bit of an hour session, you become a concert level pianist. That's not going to work, is it? It'll be hours and hours and hours. Well, why do we expect that becoming a spiritual master, enlightened, is any different? Hours and hours and hours of the practice yet will get you there. The beauty of it is not just a single skill. This is your entire life. Your entire life transforms. The most valuable thing you can do with your time, because everything changes and your life rearranges itself to kind of accommodate this. So people go, oh, well, I don't have the time, I can't afford it, I don't have the money. But if you do this, the Spirit will enable this for you to allow you to do it. That's how it works. But you've got to have the faith, as he says here, to commit first. So you have a bit of faith, show your willingness, and then the Spirit answers that. And shows that your faith is justified. Faith will bring its witnesses to show what it rested on is really there. Because it has to confirm to you that the truth is there. Otherwise, you'd lose faith. I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening, nothing's shifting. Well, you'd lose faith, wouldn't you? You'd go, well, there's no point.
Yeah.
Because the truth is there, it reveals itself. That's how it's constructed. There's the fundamental awareness. You look at it, a two-level system. Fundamental base level of awareness, the ground of being, it's been called by philosophers. Pure formless awareness of perfect love. The very essence of your mind, God, is always there. Always there. True reality, the now. Another point is the now. Always there. But it's been covered over by all of the ego's falsity. So false thoughts, the false self, false thoughts, false perceptions, all of that has covered it over. And our job is to uncover it. To uncover, that's maybe a better way of showing it. I'll use my hand. So you've got, on the level of form, perception, a covering, a veil of illusion. We talked about veil and evil. It's a veil of illusion, covering over the truth, which lies at the very core of your mind, who you really are, but it's covered over by these levels of perception, then emotions, thoughts, beliefs, all of which is egoic for most people. And that's covering over the truth that lies at your very core of this awareness. Now we must desire that truth and that truth alone. Say, I choose this. I'm willing to go there and know this truth. And I'm willing to go beyond all these levels of illusion. literally take away the veil, take off the covers, take away the veil that's covering this light by making the choice to be only this light in every situation. And then the belief, thought, emotion, and perception in that situation must change when you do that. And that is how the miracle works. You go to the very core of your mind, you find the truth there, you choose that, and then belief, thought, emotion, and perception that were there must transform. And so it ripples all the way through. And then, oh, I've just changed my perception and I feel lighter and clearer. And those emotions and thoughts and beliefs that underpin the perception are now gone, or at least questioned. Their foundation has been shaken, and they might come back again, and then you do it again. So every little ping you get on the level of perception, let's say something comes in and you go, oh, that's not nice, and you have an egoic reaction to it. That is an opportunity to go through this process of forgiveness, go much deeper and penetrate through these levels into the source, and realize that you are the source, and undo all of the beliefs, thoughts, emotions that covered over that. So just another forgiveness opportunity, which is brilliant. Then you go, okay, great, bring it on then. I need these. I need the difficulties. I need the challenges. There's forgiveness lessons in order to do this, in order to go through these levels, because without the trigger of my misperception, why would I do this inquiry? I wouldn't. It's only when there's something that's difficult that I need to do this inquiry. So what I'd suggest, Elaine, you've paid for one coaching session, is that we actually go through this process with you, with your current biggest challenge, and we work through it, and you'll see what happens, because it actually takes you through the levels of mind. You name them, and then it takes you through a worksheet where it just makes it very explicit what those levels are and how the levels are covering over the truth. And by the end of it, there's a shift. It's taking you to the core. You have a choice to make. There's a shift, and then you come back all the way up, and those beliefs, thoughts, emotions that make up that misperception are gone.
Okay.
So it's very powerful. So I'd suggest we do that, and there's no need to wait. I mean, if you are dealing with that currently, we can do it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Will help you to have a shift in that.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So just let's arrange a time to do it soon.
Yeah.
When would suit you? Maybe early next week, Monday or Tuesday.
I've got some work. Yeah, maybe Monday. I've got work on Tuesday. I think Monday's a good day. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I mean, not a day. Whatever time you've got, an hour or whatever it takes.
Yeah,
it
takes an hour to an hour and a half to do. So
half an whichever time. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. So Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, so if we do a session in the afternoon, maybe after that, Monday afternoon.
Yeah, we'll do that.
So if you join the 12:30 session.
Yes, then I can. Then after that,
stay afterwards. Yeah, if you've got.
Right, that's brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So let's put that in the diary. Join the session, and then we'll just continue.
Yeah, I'll put it in the diary as well. I'll just quickly double check because I'm fine. That's the 16th, isn't it? Yeah, no, I'm fine. Oh, you've got my dog there. She's having her afternoon slump.
Right.
Yeah, she gets her dinner at 4:00, and then I walk them. So.
Right.
She's trying to get it early.
What's the time in Tenerife, though?
It's what time is it? It's 3:25.
Okay, so it's same time as.
It is the same time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, you didn't get a chance to look at that lovely venue. You will.
I haven't yet. Yeah,
it's beautiful, actually. Yeah. Really beautiful. Yeah. If you ever fancied it, they're only just opened up, and it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Well, maybe, yeah. Spiritual
Yeah,
retreat,
you never know.
mind holiday, the advantage of doing it over in August is people could say, oh, I'll do that as my holiday,
Oh yes, well, it can be August, yes, if they don't mind the heat.
Well, so like, is it how hot does it get? Is it like 30 degrees, 40 degrees?
Yes, 30,
30.
about 30 is average, and then it can get to 40, but not for long.
Yeah.
If you get to 40, then that's probably about it's like what they call a kalima, and that's about 2 or 3 days.
Right, that might happen in August.
It's possible, but it could happen in September or July as well.
Yeah, okay.
But August is probably a favourable month for people on
well, 30
holiday.
degrees that's really comfortable. I don't think that's too hot. That's really
Yeah, generally it's all right because it's an island, so you've got the sea around you, so it should keep it a bit. It's not as bad as Spain. No, it's not as bad as Spain.
Not as
That's
humid.
very hot.
Okay.
Southern Spain.
Yeah, there's a bit of island breeze, and is it quite
There
humid?
is. Yeah, it's a dry heat. It's not
dry
too.
heat. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's not quite so humid. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, well, let's let's
Right.
look at it. Anyway, let's crack on with this for now.
I've got only till 4 because I've got my little duties to do.
Yeah, so we'll finish this and then we'll do the lesson. That should take us to
Yes.
4 o'clock. So that's the miracle. Will justify your faith in it. Do you want to read that?
Is that miracles?
That's the miracle. Justify your faith in it.
Where am I? Miracle. What number?
Number 3.
Oh, sorry. Yes, right. And thus the miracle will justify your faith in it and show it rested on a world more than real than what you saw before, a world transformed from what you thought was there.
No, the only thing that's changed there is a world redeemed from what you thought was there. So a world redeemed is a world transformed, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
So the miracle shows you it must be in both domains. It must be both in the interior and in the external domain. Your mind changes, a correction of your thoughts, but then your perception of the external world changes as well. And so now it shows you a world that confirms that this is true. And you start to connect the dots and you see actually underlying, although you can always be tempted to see the illusion of darkness in the world, actually you can see the light, and you can see it so clearly and truly as well if you focus on it. And then you're living in the domain of the miraculous in an inspired state because you're seeing the light, not the darkness. And that darkness, you just don't ignore. You go, it's just not real. It's not real. So I don't need to allow it into my mind. It doesn't have to have any. I don't have to give it any power in my mind. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, it's good.
Paragraph 5.
Number 5.
Miracles fall like drops of healing rain.
Oh yeah. Miracles fall like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world where starved and thirsty creatures come to die. You want me to do the alternative?
Yes, yeah.
Miracles fall like drops of healing rain from the state of pure, formless awareness on a dry and dusty world where starved and thirsty creatures come to die.
So heaven is the state of pure, formless awareness. That's where there's no form going on. Your awareness is totally in just pure awareness, light, we could call it. No perception of form, no duality. It's that state that is heaven. It comes from that state, which is your highest possible state of your mind. And they come from that state, and they bring you these like drops of healing rain in this dry and dusty world and a starved place. And they bring, now they have water. I mean, a nice analogy, because we know water is the bringer of life in this world. So he's using that analogy for the spirit. And in fact, a lot of, in spiritual terms, water is used a lot. You know, the baptism, the well, you know where well comes from. And you're in the well.
Yes, the wishing well.
It comes from the well that you draw up, the water, the life-giving water. You know, you go within the depths of your mind, you draw this up from the depths of your mind, the source. And that brings you the life-giving water, which is the spirit, this awareness. So, you know, your well-being comes from the source, which is your beingness. And that is what makes the world green and pleasant, and you know, the signs of life are then there. Signs of life spring up.
Nice, that one.
Show that what is born can never die. What is life is immortality. And so you look to the eternal. You see that everything here, although everything has a form and it seems to die, there's a single awareness. The awareness of life itself, the very essence of life itself, is eternal. It continues. There is no death, really. There's just forms seeming to come and go in the dream, but there's a single awareness of life that continues, and that's always been there in the dream. It doesn't matter what characters come and go. The fundamental awareness that they share is the same. And so you're not confused by the illusions anymore of death and mortality, and you see beyond that. Everyone has this immortal awareness. It's given to them by the source. And that's the essence of life itself. Without that awareness, there would be no life. And that's something that the scientific materialist cannot explain. Where does it come from? Where does life come from? You can't really explain that with the scientific materialist model. Oh, it comes from the brain. Okay, well, no, because what gave rise then to the brain and the body? I can't really answer that. It's like there's no, oh, well, it just kind of spontaneously came about. They, as Rupert Sheldrake says, there's one free miracle, which is suddenly the Big Bang comes into existence. We have no idea how that happened, but then we just take it from there. And okay, now but they don't, I haven't answered the question why. Why did that come into place? Then why did the universe suddenly pop into existence from nothing?
We all ask that question. Yeah, where did the Big Bang? Yes, I think everybody.
Well, the answer is given here. Jesus gives us the answer. He's saying to us that the Big Bang was the result of a thought of separation. See, that's the answer.
Right.
Tiny mad idea of separation came into the mind, and that then caused a whole sequence of thoughts and emotions that led to this projection outwards of the tremendous guilt and sin that we felt because we think we thought we separated from our source. So now the guilt and the sin is overwhelming, and the desire to run away is overwhelming. So we literally went out of our minds. And we went into a false reality, out of our minds, into form, into a body, to escape the apparent punishment that we thought was coming upon us for this terrible sin. And that was the energy that gave rise to the Big Bang. This enormous, energy came from the mind. And it came from this intense guilt, sin, fear that arose in the mind. And that's what then caused us to go out of our mind and project all of this guilt and sin and fear outwards into a physical universe, which has been growing and expanding ever since, and we're now caught up in it. And this whole thing is a fantastic dream world that Yeshua is saying doesn't ultimately exist, because the thought of separation is not true. That single thought that gave birth to the universe of form is not true. Therefore, nothing that happens here is true. Right? So that's the teaching, and this is the only teaching I've come across that really explains with any kind of sense, that makes any kind of sense. It gives an explanation of how this world came about, how this universe of physical form and time and space came about.
Mm.
Because it answers the question why. Scientists can't answer that. They can't tell you why. They can only tell you how.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So, but if you take it all the way back to that Big Bang, then you go beyond the model, you go beyond the science. You can't stay within the scientific realm anymore. Because at time zero, all scientific models collapse. And so it takes you, just like any path, eventually it takes you to the truth. And at that point you go, well, there must then be a timeless dimension. There must be another reality beyond time.
Which is right now.
Which is right now. And this is the eternal source, the eternal essence of reality, the ground of being, as some philosophers have called it, which underlies all of this. This is the veil of illusion that's been covered over. It's covered over this, but that true reality is still there. And our task becomes in this world to uncover that. That's the hero's journey. That's the call to awakening. Uncover that true reality, know that reality, not just as a concept. Oh, I know there's something else, heaven somewhere out there. No, as my own experience, know it experientially in my own awareness. And when you do that, that awareness now becomes God's awareness. So it's the merging of the Son and the Father in the single awareness. And that's the hero's journey. That's the call that has been going on for all time. You know, we're just maybe hearing the call a bit louder now, because our world has become so, in the ego, it's become so dysfunctional.
So when will it ever end? When's it all?
It ends when you choose for it to end, Elaine. You choose.
But what about all the other people?
Oh, but it doesn't matter.
What to do with them? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because you've made the correct choice. And the only way they will be inspired to make the correct choice is if you make the correct choice. See? So the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the at-one-ment for himself or herself. That's your responsibility. Because if you accept the at-one-ment, you're accepting this truth into your mind. You're allowing yourself to be used by the Spirit. And you can now become an agent of the Spirit coming into the world to free these other minds from their dream of separation, sin and guilt and fear. And it will use you in whatever way it finds useful to awaken. So while you're here, you do what you can. And when you're done with it, you don't have to come back. You join Yeshua in this as the Christ. And now that Christ is what's awakening humanity. And that will always be there. So you become part of the one mind that is speaking into the dream and awakening people.
Right.
And so that's what he's done. He was the first one to awaken. He's now, okay, well, my only function now, I'm not human anymore, but my only function is to reach into the dream and teach these minds that are enslaved by their egos that they are not the ego. And that's why he's taken the trouble to write a course. He could just be blissing out in pure formless awareness, but there's the Holy Spirit's still with him saying, okay, but you have work to do still, because until every mind is freed, the at-one-ment is not complete. So you must play your part in at-one-ment once you leave time as well, until the whole thing is over. There, you would be working for the at-one-ment. But at the same time, or not at the same time, because time is not really relevant then. There's no time. But Yeshua is in the state. He's connected with Source, but he can also reach into the dream from this state and know that, okay, I understand what's going on here. Right? Because he has to meet us where we are and speak to us in a language we can understand to awaken us. And that's the Holy Spirit's function. It's the reinterpreter of the dream. And the Christ is the self. I'm just going to show you another diagram, which might be useful. The Christ is the self that allows you to operate in the dream with the Holy Spirit. Don't know if you've seen this, the Holy Trinity. So you've got God the Father, source, heaven, love, oneness, beingness, pure formless awareness, perfect love, source, knowledge, truth. That's all at the top level. And then you have the Christ, the true self, the Son of God, the extension of perfect love, the Buddha. It's been called the awakened one, the Atman in the Hindu tradition, whatever language you want to use. It's the sense of a higher self concept. Still not perfectly this, because this is just a pure experience of love, perfect love, pure formless awareness. To be in this is to be in heaven. But this is the self that knows this, connected with this. It's drawing on its source for its identity, but it can also perceive the world of time and space and people, things, places, events, circumstances, situations, trauma, successes, failures, and all the experiences seem to exist and happen in the physical universe of time and space. It can perceive all of that, but from this higher perspective, from the perspective of the one self. So that's now, this is the Holy Trinity. Father, source, God, that's the ultimate awareness. Then you have Christ, is the concept of a one self. You don't see yourself as separate. You see yourself as one self, which now allows you to reinterpret the dream. And that reinterpretation of the dream, the true perceptions, Christ's vision, as it's called, miracles, forgiveness, letting go. It's also been called surrender in some spiritual traditions, acceptance, salvation, at-one-ment, enlightenment. That process of reinterpretation is the Holy Spirit. And that's the Holy Spirit's function. So you get Christ, your true self, and the Holy Spirit, which is the perception of the Christ of this world. And those together deliver you eventually back to the experience of God, pure formless awareness of perfect love. So it's an operating system for your mind in the illusion. That's what the Holy Trinity means. Which isn't that well understood in Christian terms. Most Christians don't understand it. Most Christian theologians don't understand it. So you have to have an understanding of the mind and just non-dual teaching to understand it. That it's an operating system, temporarily useful. It's not the ultimate truth, because the ultimate truth is there's only one awareness. That's God. He's on the truth of that. But in the illusion, you need this operating system, the true self or the Christ, reinterpreting the dream experiences. And that reinterpretation from the perspective of perfect oneness is the Holy Spirit. And so now your perception changes, everything changes, because you're perceiving it from a different sense of self. And that will all lead you eventually to the experience of pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is revelation. If you're in this, it's revelation, you've transcended time, you're in knowledge, you're beyond perception. But while you're here, this operating system is necessary and very useful, Christ and the Holy Spirit. So they are temporary.
Sorry. Like Eckhart Tolle, would he be right at the top there? Or are we not to put them people in categories?
Well, anyone who's informed, Eckhart Tolle is the voice of the Christ. So he's speaking to us and interpreting the dream for us in a different way. And the Holy Spirit is speaking, Christ and the Holy Spirit is speaking through him. So his function is on this level. He may well have experiences in his own time and meditation where he's in the transcendent state. But in this state, there's nothing to say and nothing to do. It's just perfect love. So when he awoke, he had this experience, deep being. He didn't really do very much for 2 years, just kind of sat on a park bench and blissed out. But then, the Spirit had a purpose and said, okay, well, you got to come back a little bit into the world, have some kind of form identity, but you're going to help people to reinterpret their dream and see it differently. And so then he becomes a teacher of God, a teacher of love. And whether he's fully there or there's still, I've heard some things that he said and I don't agree with him. I think there's still some ego there, but he's certainly on the path. He's awakening
Yeah.
to the truth, and that we're all on our journey. So he can teach, and there's different teachers of this needed, because there's the people will resonate with different teachers, different people, different way of saying it, different message. So there's many teachers of God that are needed to awaken all the sons of God.
Yeah.
And so your purpose comes, well, how do I be part of this great at-one-man process? What's my purpose? What's my function in this? And if you find it, then you find your flow. You find your bliss, you follow your bliss. Your special function, as Yeshua calls it, starts to reveal itself. And this life is a meaningful encounter with the truth. That's part of your own awakening process, because the more you teach it, the more you know that this is true. And this starts to give rise to this pure formless awareness of perfect love more and more in your own mind. Okay, so let's get back to we've done the insert on what is a miracle, which is useful. A nice warm-up to the lesson, which is only 2 paragraphs, so we've got 15 minutes to finish that. We should manage, I'd say. So today's lesson, if you read the original and then the alternative below in gray.
Okay.
Please.
I let forgiveness rest upon all things, for thus forgiveness will be forgiven me. The alternative, I let go of all things, for so I am released.
So much simpler. I let go. What does it mean to let forgiveness rest upon all things? So that's the question. I think a lot of course students get a bit confused. What does that actually mean in practice? The language sounds good, but what does that mean in my mind? How am I then perceiving things?
Well, I would see it more as just, for me, just let things be as they are.
Well, let go really of my attachment to all things.
I
let it all go. The things are not really important to me anymore. I let go of all things. I'm not attached to them. I'm not making them real in my mind. That's really the question.
Yes.
So although I'm in the world, I'm not of it. I'm not attached to the things of the world. I don't value the stuff. I don't value possessions, money, people, places, events, circumstances, events, achievements, all of that stuff, things, that's what he's referring to.
Right.
Because there is no thing in pure formless awareness. Stated again, there is nothing in pure formless awareness. Do you understand? No thing is nothing. There's no form. So I let go of all things is necessary if you're going to go into a state of pure formless awareness where there's no thing, no form. So although we perceive things, we're surrounded by stuff, endless amounts of stuff. You look at what's around you. There's a wall, there's a couch, there's paintings, there's a laptop, a computer, a phone, blah, blah, blah,
animals,
all the stuff. But can I let go of all things means, can I let go of perceiving it as important and real and valuable?
Does that mean moving, animated and unanimated?
Everything, yeah.
People, animals.
All things, all form, right? Things are form. All form. So anything that you can see, feel, touch, taste, perceive with your physical senses, sense, is form. And he's asking us to let go of our attachment to all things, because pure formless awareness doesn't contain any things. There's no need to populate your awareness with stuff. That's part of the illusion.
Yeah. But doesn't mean you can't appreciate sort of like a nice flower or, a nice puppy.
Well, what are you really appreciating? That's the question.
Their beauty.
Okay. Beauty, but that's not the form. The beauty is in the essence.
Ah, okay.
There's an essence identity.
But I don't like the flower. I can't possess it. It's just appreciating it as it is at that moment.
So there's an awareness. There's a life essence that comes through everything. that shines through. And that awareness is your own awareness. That's the essence of life itself, which is you. So you see yourself in everything. You can't see yourself in everything if you focus on the form, because the form seems to be different. You know, the flower is not you, the puppy's not you. You're a human, you have a body, you're not the same as anything. You know, you're in that conception, you're unique, an individual. You have your own unique body, your own, no one and nothing's quite the same as you. But that separates you from everyone and everything else. You see, if you root it in body awareness, body consciousness, that would be seeing with the eyes of the ego. So the ego can only go, oh, that's a nice flower, but in relation to me, my self-concept, that's a nice flower because I like flowers. I, subject, like flowers, object. The spirit says, no, you are the flower. You are the essence of the flower. That essence is in you. The beauty you see in the flower is the beauty in you.
Oh, I see, yes.
See, so namaste, that Sanskrit greeting is, I see you as I am. I see you as I truly am. So it's a statement of unconditional love and acceptance. When you say, I accept things as they are, what does that mean? I accept their form identity as it is, or I accept the essence of what they are. I can only really accept the essence, can't I? Because the form identity is going to change.
Of course.
Always changing. So I accept it and then, oh, it just changed again. Oh, and then it changed again. I accept the flower and then the next day the flower's wilted. Oh, now I'm sad because the form I was attached to has apparently died.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I've lost something. But if I accepted only the essence of the flower, then I can see that essence everywhere. Oh, it's in the flower. Okay, well, that form's temporarily gone, but it's in another flower. It's in another plant. It's in the trees. It's in the sky. It's in another human being. It's in a puppy. It's in my couch. It's everywhere. I can't lose it. So then you feel connected and one, and there's no perception of loss, and there's nothing to fear, because you can never lose what cannot be threatened. Nothing real can be threatened. And nothing unreal exists. So what the form identity does not exist. So you see, like if you can really apply that in how you perceive the world, you see how life-changing that will be. Nothing real can be threatened. Okay, there's only the essence. So let me focus only on the essence. Make only that real in my perception. Then I realize nothing unreal. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. So I'm not focusing on what doesn't exist. I'm not focusing on the form anymore. And so then you make those two lines, you make them into how you perceive the world. This is how you live your life. If you can translate it into perception, from theoretical knowledge into perception, and you do that through forgiveness. That's the only way you do it, by letting go. As he's saying, I let go of all things, my attachment to all things. For so I am released into the truth of who I really am. I awaken to who I am as I let go of all things. And so that's the process we're all on. And keep letting go. The truth of you becomes revealed more. That inspires you to let go more. And you're on the right track. You're going home rather than going away from home. Deeper into illusions. Hang on, attached to things, people, places, circumstances, events, all the stuff that I showed you here. Attached to all of that, and that roots you into form identity and keeps you away from the Christ and pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's a denial of that.
Fascinating. So that includes everything. Not that I've got any children, but people,
relationships, people, everything's included, and no exceptions to the truth. So it's a universal experience. If you make exceptions, then there's still correction needed.
So not getting attached to the husband or anything.
No, because none of it will last.
No.
We know that. I mean, why do we attach to stuff that doesn't last? It's crazy, because we're only going to suffer. Every form dies, every person dies, every animal dies, every form doesn't last. So why get attached to it if it doesn't last?
So we're
That's
stuck in
surely
the
quite
ego.
crazy.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
stuck
so
in
the ego is trying to make it real. It's trying to give you some kind of meaning and purpose in the unreal,
Mhm.
which is futile. You're never going to achieve that. You'll only experience the pain of loss. Seemingly, then you lose everything. Just when you think everything's okay, oh, now I've lost that, now I've lost that. As you get older, you start to lose a lot.
You're true.
You're losing
Yes, true.
you're losing
Yeah.
your physical abilities. You're losing
Your
your
friends,
mind, losing your
yes,
health,
and
losing people, friends, all of that. And it seems like, oh, my world's just deconstructing. It's very scary. But the truth is, it was never real.
mm,
It was never reality. So you attached falsely, and now the dream, because it was unreal, these things start deconstructing because they're not real. The ego lacks the permanence of the spirit. It can't make the eternal. And so now, you're seeing death apparently, but none of it's true. It was never true. Just when you were younger, it didn't seem so obvious that death was, this entire
wasn't
world
in
is
the
a death.
forefront. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're 20, 30, it's like I'm in the prime of my life and I'm living my life,
Yes.
and all my friends aren't dying, and it all seems, but in time, it shows you that it was a dream of death. Ultimately, this is a death wish. That's where it all ends up. You just weren't aware of it. Now you're becoming aware of it. So that's useful because you're seeing through the illusion, and you can go, okay, well, this is now my time to go deeper, to go beyond the illusion into the truth. To prepare myself for the time of my own death, when the body will no longer be there. And I would like not to come back here. I'd like to awaken fully and not have to do another lifetime. Come into another body and do it all over again and be another character in a dream world. I'd like to just remain in my pure formless oneness. If you look at the timeline, this timeline, if you skip this, if you're still in the ego when you die, guess what? You just go whoop, you skip this because you weren't aware of it. You've got all the ego psychological and emotional attachments still because you haven't let go. So that's your karma. And that causes you to come back. Where do you come if you've got that? You come into another body, into another life to express it all and play it all out again in another dream. And that's the cycle of birth and death. So death won't help you if you haven't awakened. You must awaken while you're here to this. So when you finally let go of your body, you just merge back into source. There's no body anymore, and you just merge back into your true awareness. And you're at home at peace forever. It's no big deal, really. It's your natural state.
Yeah.
But to the ego, it's a huge deal because the ego doesn't exist there. It's gone. No separate self anymore. Okay, I've got a couple of minutes, so I'm going to read the lesson. I thank you, Father.
You want me to read that?
Yeah.
Top one. I thank you, Father, for the pain to save me from hell I made.
For your plan to save me from the hell I made.
Oh, okay. And then the alternative. I thank you, my source, for your plan to free me from the helpless. What does that say?
Innovated.
Oh, innovated little life I made.
Yeah, and that you'll notice is an acronym for help. Helpless, innovated little life.
Yeah.
So it's the self-concept that you made. The little self that you made that puts you in hell. Keeps you away from your source. It is not real. Okay, I want to continue. And you have given me the means.
Just stick in the alternative, yeah. It is not real. Oh, that's it, number 2. It is not real.
Yeah. So no change. Just read 3 and 4 as the alternative.
Okay. And you have given me the means to prove its unreality to me. Yeah. And the next one, oh,
And that means is forgiveness or letting go.
yeah. Sorry, I've only got 5% left on this. So if it does go blank, the screen, it's because I've got battery that's going right. It's 5% left.
We're nearly finished, so we should be okay.
Yeah.
Just keep going for 5 minutes and we'll finish.
Okay.
You have given
where
me
are
the means to prove its unreality to me. The key is in my hand.
The key is in my hand, and I have reached the door beyond which lies the end of dreams. And 5, stand before the state of pure formless awareness.
So that's
wondering
the gates of heaven. Stand before the gates of heaven. So that's the translated.
Oh, I see. Yes.
The gate of heaven is a state of pure formless awareness, because it's an inner state. You stand before that state, which is a possibility, wondering if I should enter in and be at home. So should I just surrender completely to that state and just be that?
Yeah. And wondering if I should enter in and be at home. It's the source. Yeah.
So should I just let it all go and surrender completely to that? And of course, there's no ego there. Ego identity doesn't exist there. So it's a choice to die to the ego, to be reborn into eternal life, which is the state of pure formless awareness.
Interesting. I don't know if that's possible. We still need to eat. We still need to eat and do the body function things.
But if there's no separate self anymore, then your Christ self is doing it for you.
Oh, I see.
So Jesus still ate and walked around in the world, but he wasn't identified with the character anymore.
I see. Yes.
He didn't see himself as Yeshua anymore. He was just this pure awareness that's come into the world as a light into the world to teach people the truth of who they really were and be the example of that. So you're no longer rooted, although you still can operate in the world actually quite effectively. You're not attached to anything. It's like none of it means anything anymore. So you do you do what's necessary. I think he still ate. It was recorded that he had meals and stuff. He still ate, but there was no attachment to it. He's just like, well, my only function here is to be the Christ and to teach people the truth. And he dedicated his life solely to that. Everything else was just, helpful in that purpose. Okay, I'll feed the body, because if I don't feed it, I won't be able to walk miles or teach people, or, I need like fuel. You want to drive somewhere in your car, you got to put fuel in it. Okay, that's not an attachment. That's just how it works.
Fair enough.
It's not going to function. So without attachment, the difference, the ego would say, oh, no, but I need a fancy car to drive it, because the car's got to be some part of my self-concept. It's got to show, how special I am or how wealthy I am or whatever. So, that's then the misinterpretation. Oh, the body needs to be adorned with special things. I need to wear special robes, or I need to have jewelry, or I need to look good. No. Then it's a misinterpretation. The body's useful to go where you need to go, to speak the words of God, to do the actions that are required. That's all. But you don't try and make a self-concept out of it, because that's a disaster. So the body is your self-concept, then can you see why fear would be a natural, inevitable result of that? Because your body's going to die, so therefore you die if you're identified with it, which is all very fearful. And most people, as they get older, don't want to look at that. But you have to look at it, because that is what's going to happen.
Of course.
And if your mind's not prepared, then what happens when you die? I think you're just confused. You don't know what the hell's going on.
Of course.
And if you haven't awakened, then all kinds of stuff can happen. That's why ghosts and people, they don't know where to go. So they hang around still thinking they're in a body, but they're not really. They're just in their mind. So, use this time to awaken. So I choose to look at the original. Let me forgive all things.
Oh, yeah. Let me forgive all things, and let creation be as you would have it be, and as it is. And let me not wait again today.
It's actually, I choose to let go.
Oh, where am I? Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah.
I choose to let go.
I choose to let go of all things and let extension be as you are aware of it.
As you're aware it is. So extension is within the awareness of God, pure formless awareness. So instead of let me, it's I choose to. It's much more positive. It's my choice. I choose to let go of all things and let extension be as you are aware it is. Probably deserves a capital because that's capitalized as well. So extension is the extension of this awareness into this world. And we are all that extension. The Son of God is the extension of this awareness. So it's your true self, the true part of your mind, your true awareness. Okay, so I choose to remember
that I am your
Let's read the
extension.
original. Let me remember. So let me remember, or I choose to remember.
Let me remember that I am the sun and the opening the door at last. Forget all illusions in the blazing light of truth as memory of you returns to me. And then the alternative. I choose to remember that I am your extension and opening the door at last. Forget illusions in the blazing awareness of truth as memory of you returns to me.
Blazing awareness. So I kept the blazing because there is when you really connect with this, it does sort of feel like blazing. It's like something in your mind's just like, wow, that's again, it's a pointer to an experience that's beyond words, but it sort of does capture something of the kind of transcendent, quite amazing experience of it.
Describable, yeah.
Blazing awareness of truth. Kind of blazing through your mind, and it's just kind of shining through your mind in this quite potent way. You can feel the power of it. Memory of you returns to me. So when you really access your source, the awareness you have is profoundly different. You can experience that as a blazing light or blazing awareness. Okay, so what is he saying in that paragraph?
Well, it's
in essence.
The essence is it's the source. That's where we all belong. And choosing again to let go. And to be in the awareness of the truth. Yes,
But letting go is the means for this truth to arise in our mind. So it's a very simple message. He's giving us the same message over and over and over again. Every lesson, it's the same message. There's only one truth. The way to the truth is to let go or forgive your illusions here. But he has to repeat it over and over and over again because we've got so entrenched in our illusions that it needs constant reminding. I mean, just look at what we've done. The entire world is a projection of a false belief. The entire world's an illusion. Everything you thought was real is illusory. A lot of changing of mind. We have to change our belief about everything. It says at some point this course requires that you question every value you've ever held and be willing to let it go. Every single value and belief you've ever held. Wow.
That's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Well, it literally is mind-blowing because you're going to blow the ego mind away. So I say blow it away with the breeze of your breath. Let it go into the nothingness that it really is.
Mm.
And then what's left is just pure awareness, pure formless awareness. Beyond that, I mean, the analogy of the sky is a useful one, because blow away the clouds and the sky is still there. It's just obscured by the clouds, which are on another kind of order of reality. The sky is infinite by comparison. The sky doesn't exist. You can't say I'm in the sky now. It's kind of this timeless, formless, spacious awareness where you can't say I'm there now, because the clouds are finite, low to the ground, but you go beyond them, and well, what's revealed is the sky, which is always there. So it's quite a good pointer, using the sky as a pointer to heaven. Okay, and then the final prayer, he says, brother, and read the last couple of sentences.
My companion, is that the one?
So, brother, forgive me now, the original.
Oh, yeah. Brother, forgive me now. I come to you and take you home with me. And as we go, the world goes with us on our way to God.
I take you home with me. This is Yeshua speaking to us in our dream, saying, you're my brother. And interesting, he says, forgive me now. Isn't that interesting? What does he mean by that, do you think?
Well, forgive me now. Now?
Why would we need to forgive? Why would we need to forgive Jesus or Yeshua?
For allowing us to get into this state in the first place.
Well, I translate it as it's let go of your misperceptions about me now. Forgive me now. Okay, so let go of everything that you misperceived, because people have huge misperceptions about him. So let that all go.
Yeah, you say yes. Yeah.
Right,
I've got you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I get you now. Yes.
Well, that's an interpretation. Maybe he meant something else. I don't know. Forgive me now. It might have been just, well, as you're going to forgive your brother, you need to forgive me, because forgiveness is, the way. But we would, we're only forgiving our own misperceptions. That's the truth. We're letting go. Forgiveness means you're letting go of your own misperceptions. It's your own negative thoughts and emotions that you're letting go of. That's why we use the term letting go, because it makes it very clear that when I forgive another person, I'm not forgiving them for what they've done to me. I'm forgiving or letting go of my own misperceptions about them and what they've done. So it puts it back within my power to let go. Well, I can always choose to let go of those because they're my own thoughts and emotions. It's not really about the other person at all. The other person doesn't even exist. It's just a thought system that if they were in the ego, it's the thought system that's now been triggered in me that I need to let go of. So I need to let go of my own false beliefs, my own misperceptions. So let go of your misperceptions about me now. And just as an aside, that's why we changed the name Jesus to Yeshua. Because it's like, okay, we'll let go of whatever you associate with that name. We've all got associations because most of us grew up in a Christian society. Looks like Elaine's gone. Maybe her battery's died. So I'll just finish this off quickly. So I come to you to take you home with me. So Yeshua's saying, I come to you to take you home with a capital H, back to heaven, the state of pure formless awareness. And as we go, the world goes with us on our way to pure formless awareness, perfect love, on our way to God. So we go, we follow our own hero's journey home, the journey of at-one-ment, then the world goes with us. So we are contributing to this plan of awakening, plan of at-one-ment, through our own mind and our own lives. So amen to that. And that brings us to the end of the session. Thanks. So thank you to everyone who joined, Sally, Jackie, and Elaine. Thanks for staying till the end, Elaine. Sorry your phone died, but we were nearly done. So yeah, I wish you good practicing. Practice today's lesson well. I've given you a longer meditation recording, 25 minutes or so to 27 minutes to do that, and listen to the breath break as often as you can as well, this afternoon and evening, to keep you topped up, connected to the spirit, in the flow of life, and in a very happy, peaceful, flowing state, which is what I wish for you. So namaste. And just before we do that, there's no session tomorrow. The next live session will be on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Sunday 4:30, so join us then. Okay. Have a lovely weekend in the meantime. Namaste. Which means the true self, the forgiving self, the Christ in me, acknowledges and honors that same forgiving Christ self in you.